Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808 and a special tribute episode remembering a true titan of hip-hop. On Friday 9th April 2021, the world heard the news that DMX had passed after a heart attack at the age of 50, so it was only right that we all got together as fans of Darkman X to celebrate his incredible life. Earl Simmons was a nomadic colossus in the making, carrying the weight of a cold world square on his shoulders, and like most fans, my first experience of X is emblazoned in my mind, seeing LL Cool J's 4321 video and being beguiled by the ski-masked man surrounded by dogs. My attention shifted in its entirety and I was besotted. In a world of commercial hip-hop choking the charts, here was our punk icon in rap, and more than anything, he embodied the soul of this culture and the world that it comes from. Straight out of a world of abuse, neglect, and internal plight, a giant emerged who moulded the world of commercial music on his own terms, helping show the likes of Jay-Z how to herd the masses into a different shaped hip-hop that topped charts. Here was a unique talent that overflowed into film and pop culture. D's life story speaks on humanity and the lack of it, and what sheer talent, persistence and will can achieve. We didn't need the complex metaphors and similes when we had the stark honesty, power, pain, rage and vulnerability that X brought in just a few lines. Earl Simmons was the streets, yet his words filled white middle-class living rooms around the globe, marrying religious gospel with dark and sinister street tales that were utterly believable, not least because of the transcendent voice and delivery. X's music was the warts and all truth, and that's why it remains timeless. With extreme intimacy married with an anti-social, vicious manner, X's agony showcased just how remarkable it was to hear the internal struggle erupting into art. His might on the mic during his incredible album run was like a comet lighting up those unforgettable years with his music, but the trail it blazed lasted generations, paving the way for a whole new wave of artists to this day. As the great Jeff Wise puts it, DMX was maybe the rawest rapper of all time. No pretense, no frills, just pure adrenaline, lawless genius and reckless abandon. The struggle incarnate. So, much love to his family and all of his loved ones, and one love to Boomer, and never forget the internal spirit of X when he said to live life is to suffer, but to survive, that's to find meaning in the suffering. Rest in power, X. We pay tribute to you right now, and we have some amazing guests lined up with fantastic takes and stories and just personable tales of what X meant to them. And first up, we've got Justin Hunte, former editor-in-chief of Hip Hop DX, nationally broadcast TV producer and founder of Company Man Media. Man, here we go. Boom. Well, Justin, man, I know that I know you're a busy man, but I also know that this week's been, as you said, crazy for a lot of people, especially in the hip hop community. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just wanted to see where you're at, what you've been thinking. I mean, X, he's left us, but he left us such a legacy, and it was just like crazy. I mean, how you been feeling, man?
You know, I've had a ton of emotions. You know, I think it's definitely a tragedy. I'm not sure how much of a surprise it is, but also I think it's a reminder of how much of a victory his life has been, not only for the millions of us who are affected by his music, but also for himself. You know, DMX's life is one of the most traumatic anyone will ever hear, you know, from him as a child being abandoned by his mother to him, you know, his mother leaving him at a group home without him knowing about it, you know, him being tricked into becoming a crack addict, you know, the number of times he could have died just on the streets of Yonkers, all the things he overcame to even get signed by Def Jam, you know, and having the opportunity for his powerful voice to resonate for 20-something years across multiple generations, to me is a victory. And I'm not sure, I've got a piece dropping today. It's supposed to drop this weekend, but I had to clear out a copyright issue. And it's called DMX, Hip Hop's Greatest Success Story. You know, I think the idea that when people say things like hip hop saved my life, you know, I think that directly connects to the culture and all of us within it. But I don't know anyone else who it applies to more literally than DMX. You know, he saved millions of lives, including his own, just by picking up that microphone. You know, and I'm not sure if he lives to 50 without it. So in that sense, I'm happy that hopefully he's finally at peace because it's been dark and hell's been hot for him his whole life.
Yeah. It's so funny when you say that, because it's also like when you look at how X was in circles before like 2017, 2018, around there was a window of time when X, if not forgotten, he was a different person to how me and you probably first ever saw that like Titan rise, you know, and it's actually quite nice to have stuff like the Verses, obviously, that came out, and just having him a bit more out there in our lives and maybe in our conversations a little bit. I don't know, how do you think he was like perceived after like 2005 to, well, recent times?
I mean, I think a lot of us became very judgmental when we looked at DMX. You know, we started saying things to ourselves like, man, X fell off, or man, X still dealing with that. You know, I think there's a lot of arguably the erratic nature of his lifestyle became something that, you know, we looked at from a judgmental position, you know, and, you know, I've seen DMX perform live maybe 3 times, right? The first time was during the Hard Knock Life tour. And we had second row seats. We're standing like right in front of the stage, right?
Damn.
And this part where DMX is performing, and then he falls off the stage, right? And then all the security comes around, they help him get back on stage, and he walks in the middle of the stage with his microphone. He's got blood dripping from his mouth, like right here. He's got blood dripping from his mouth. And then everyone's like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And then he just grabs the mic and goes, just starts growling, right? And it was epic. Like, to this day, I don't know if he fell off stage on purpose or if that was part of the show. You know, I watched the documentary, the Hard Knock Life Tour documentary. I didn't see him fall off anywhere else, so I guess that was an accident. But it was just so epic. And he seemed so much larger than life then. And then I guess the last time I saw him perform live was in 2014. And it was here in LA. And he was tweaking that day. You know, I mean, he was, whatever it was, he just wasn't sober. You know, it could have been medication, it could have been, you know, recreational. And, you know, there's a part where he drops the microphone or he drops a Henny bottle or something. I don't know. And he climbs up on top of 2 stacked speakers. And it looks like he's about to fall off, right? And then some stagehands come and they support it. And he rocks up there for like 3 songs. And the whole venue is captivated, lit. I mean, it was still a larger than life performance. He ended up going over time. And so the venue cut the lights on and closed the curtain. So X comes out from around the curtain, goes into the audience with the microphone and starts praying with people for like another 10 minutes after the show. And, you know, it was, you know, probably the most tangible example of beauty behind the madness that I'd experienced at a rap show at the same time, you know? And so I feel like because the music was more muted post, let's say Grand Champ, you know, let's say Grand Champ. I can't tell you the last time I listened to Grand Champ, but it went #1. So let's say Grand Champ. And the headlines became louder, you know, the tax headlines, the, you know, arrests, you know, the drugs, the time he pretended to be a police officer. That's my favorite headline.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's my favorite one. And I think that ended up curving a lot of our coverage because he started to look like a cautionary tale. And, you know, I don't think that any of that was necessarily misplaced or ill-placed. Sometimes it was. You know, some people were very critical of DMX almost in a malicious way. But all that to me looked so much like the guy DMX was prior to the fame. You know, prior to his Dark as Hell side, prior to, you know, signing to prior to 54321, you know, prior to signing the Def Jam and all that stuff, you know. And the only difference is that the violence wasn't there in the same way. Yeah. You know, like there's basically 20 years of nonviolent drug offenses or tax offenses, you know, and I think that speaks to, you know, the man he was and what he was truly dealing with. Yeah. You know, it makes me reframe some of the things that happened with the life he lived prior to. I mean, he wasn't a violent person. He was violent off of circumstance. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, it's tragic, but I also feel like, again, I'm not sure there's someone who I can think of when I hear the phrase hip hop saved my life, it applies to more literally than DMX.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. And it's just like, it's weird how life is chapters, right? And he just, like you said, it's amazing. He lived a life to this point. And I was really looking forward to this next phase, man. It's just gutting to not see it. And I was actually going to think back to them days, and everyone has, you know, the beauty of this week through all the tragedy and the heartache and the gut punches, the beauty of it has been those personable, anecdotal, just amazing stories of him at, you know, just doing everything, flipping pancakes for people and stuff like that, and like being at weddings and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, you know what the best thing about X is? Everyone held him so tight to their heart that you don't really, maybe people don't have that with Jigga. Maybe people don't have that with Nas. Maybe they do. But I think on a more of a global scale, I think DMX was held to your heart when you first heard him. So,
yeah. There's only three people I can think of in hip hop that are on that level, on that plateau. Tupac, Eminem, and DMX.
Yeah.
Like those three did such a reflexive, profound, unbelievable, indescribable examples of putting their flaws first up front and not being hypocritical or lean on hypocrisy in their music versus their life. Like those guys were naked to the world, you know, and you know, and DMX was the top selling guy. That, I mean, when Jay-Z had that line, only dudes moving units and pimp juicing us. Yeah. Maybe there should be a fourth one. You know? X was moving a lot of units. You know, he sold a lot of records. Yeah. And you know, I just don't think that there was ever an inkling of hypocrisy in his projection. Yeah. I don't know where his record sales are now, but he seems like the next guy to go diamond to me. Especially now. Yeah. His music, he's the only guy I can think of who was this preachy or just talked about Jesus or the Lord in his music this much and never polarized his audience.
Yes.
That is not something that is, Kanye can't do that.
That's it. And do it live. And like you said, go and do it prayers live, you know? Yeah, right. You know, I don't think we'll ever see an energy. Like when Nipsey passed, Nipsey to me had Jesus energy. Yeah. I don't think DMX got Jesus energy. But he's definitely got biblical energy. There is something prophetic about his, you know, the life of Earl Simmons. You know, the book of Earl Simmons does resonate to me in a way that, you know, maybe the Apostle Paul or something. Yeah. You know, I'm not up on the Bible like that. Yeah. If I got it wrong, you know, just know that I mean something good. Or somebody who overcame some struggle and meant, you know, so much to people in a positive way by being as open and vulnerable and upfront with his challenges and traumas. You know, I mean, just as a vocalist, right? Let's just take the vocalist, DMX. I'm not sure how often his vocals were stacked. I used to think all his vocals were stacked, right? Yeah. And then I met him. And I'm like, oh, you just sound like that. Oh, damn. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm not used to hearing a voice resonate that way. Damn. You know, like the first, I mean, I met DMX maybe 3 times. Tell me those stories. What was it like meeting him, first of all?
Well, the first time was before that show. Like, we ended up going to that show, the one in LA where he was praying at the end. And, you know, I was really challenged, right? I mean, he was tweaking again. Like, he was definitely tweaking. And so we were there before with a pre-show ritual. We've got all this footage somewhere. And he's praying in a prayer circle with his team. And like, this prayer is boombastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got him praying on camera and the camera's shining in his eyes and he's going in and he's, going in like straight at the camera. Then all of a sudden he goes, can you turn the camera down? Can you turn the light down? It's a little bright. It's a little bright though. It's a little bright. Just a little bright.
I love the way he talks.
Right.
Yeah.
And just the at least that day, right? Because apparently, I know people who know X a lot better than I do, and apparently, if X likes you, it's all good. If he doesn't, it's a different thing. He was around people that he didn't have any negative vibes from. So he was jovial. He was unintentionally hilarious. And at the same time, I almost felt saddened because I personally didn't know how to feel. Like there was a part of me that felt embarrassed for him because of how high he was that day. Right. I mean, there's a video I did called The Rise and Fall of DMX, right? This was on Hip Hop DX. At the end, there's a clip of me taking a picture with DMX and as B-roll or whatever. We had that video, we had that footage maybe 2 years before that video comes out. And we never did anything with it because I felt embarrassed. I felt like, this is kind of, this looks like we're trying to play off of, like, there's something that's not good. And we ended up putting it out in that piece because that piece was about mental illness and addiction, right? And so it was an example that I felt that circumstance. But then years after that, I realized X was never embarrassed. X never hid these things from his audience. He never hid it from the world as a person. In his personal life, in his personal interactions, he never hid it. In his music, on wax. Like, this is who he was. And he never had any reservations about being all the awesome and all the awful. Yeah. And that was the example that I take away from him more than anything else, because if he can be as comfortable with who he is, no matter where he is, what station in life he currently was residing at, then why is it so difficult for me sometimes? Yeah. Why is it, why are people I know more so concerned about how, they're represented or portrayed outwardly or what the public thinks of them? Yeah.
I think I think as a figure, what you said there really hits home to what I thought of him, like how we as a people deal with the world that one hip hop comes from, but DMX emerged from, and he's like a mirror to me. He was a mirror to that world, and it's difficult to see him when he was so skinny when he was so skinny in the noughties. It's horrible to see a person you look up to like that, but also it's horrible to see the world that created that and is compounding that person. And he's like this weird portal into a world. We don't like what we see, but then maybe we should do something about this world that is doing this to this man and these people that he is reaching. And sorry to interrupt, but that's just resonates with me, man, what you've just said there. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, especially in entertainment, especially in hip hop culture. DMX was not bragging about possessions. Yeah. He almost wasn't bragging about anything other than he was storytelling, but I was listening to We In Here, right? That one's on Year of the Dog. That's the album that came out on Sony. And he was up here talking about, we rapping about clothes and Gucci and stuff. And I was like, man, this actually, I don't have too many memories of DMX saying stuff like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? And in that moment was the first time I really thought about how many chains DMX wasn't wearing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's true. It's true. It's true. I feel like he should have the most brolic Jesus piece I've ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah. I love how he kept it so authentic with those chains. Like he always, apart from the Ruff Ryders pieces, he would always wear them chains or two, and that was his thing. And oh man, just brilliant. Just such an icon, man.
I'm from South Carolina, and I grew up in South Carolina. And I remember it had to be 2010, 11 maybe. I don't know. Don't quote me on that all the time. But I would get all these messages on Facebook from people, and I get calls from people. I got a call from a friend one day. He was like, "Hey, Jay Hunt, man, what's up, man? What's up, Jay Hunt? Hey, man, how you doing? You doing good? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm doing good, man." He's like, "Yeah, man. Hey, I saw Earl the other day," and I'm like, "You saw who? I saw Earl the other day." That's how, a lot of people where I'm from, that's how we talk.
Yeah.
He's like, "I saw Earl the other day." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Who's Earl?" He's like, "Earl, DMX." And I'm like, "Oh, y'all, you're so familiar with him. You call him Earl. Word."
Yeah.
DMX had moved to Burns, South Carolina. He moved to Spartanburg County.
Right.
That's where I went to college. I went to Wofford College in South Carolina. And I lived in Greenville, which is the next county over, next county south. And it was a thing in our area, but it was like so regular. Like DMX would go to the barber. People would hit me when he was at the barber shop. A lot of people hung out with him, knew him, talked about all the love he had. He had a baby mom there in that area, and so he spent a lot of time there. And just the love he had in that region.
Yeah.
It was one of the most shocking things to me at all. Like, DMX, international icon, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, slipping, can't get up, is in upstate South Carolina. And people there feel so comfortable with him that they call him Earl instead of X.
That's it.
These are the only people I've ever heard in my life that I've ever met who call him Earl instead of X. And I know that the people, like, he had that impact on people. Like, no matter the people he touched, he interacted with, he made them feel like he was a part of their family, and I'd argue vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, I know you're saying there, like, you've been listening to a few of the tracks, but one thing that I think we all do when people pass, when Doom passed, when all these people are passing, and it's sad that is happening now, we do go back and maybe reappraise or just revisit stuff, and maybe it hits different now or whatever. And I was just wondering if there's any tracks like you've been listening to, or albums maybe recently that you've heard that maybe you've just thought differently now, or maybe they just hit harder.
All right, well, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. I have it on my wall, right? It's up there right next to the Tupac album, right next to All Eyes on Me. And I love that album. The song, was it Let Me Fly, I think it is? Yeah. The second verse, to me, is one of the greatest verses in rap history. To me, it is, And I can't hear it right now because I got another song stuck in my head. But he says, the end of the verse is, there's a difference between doing wrong and being wrong. I felt like personally he was more poetic in the beginning, right? I felt like in a scriptural sense, I guess. The way his octaves hit the track, the fluctuated, right? So the Let Me Fly verse. This verse always made me feel sad and thankful for him at the same time. And it starts with, sold my soul to the devil and the price was cheap. And it's cold on this level because it's twice as deep. But you don't hear me. Ignorance is bliss and so on. Sometimes it's better to be thought dumb. Shall I go on? You know what I mean? Every bar is a T-shirt. It really is. It's just so amazing. And I've been listening to that album a lot, and it still hits me like, the first time I heard it or the times I was listening to it the most. I listen to Flesh of My Flesh, and I've always been critical of Flesh of My Flesh. Like, I personally don't think Flesh of My Flesh is a classic. I think he's got a lot of classic songs. I think it's a great success story. But that album to me was not, it just hit different, right? So I listened to it again this week, and personally I still feel the same way. But I also feel like that one was like inward more in a different, maybe not more, but it was inward in a different kind of way than the first one. Now here's the change though. I forgot how great And Then There Was X is. Oh my God. I'm rocking that album I've been rocking it all week. And that album right there was the most prevalent one when I was in college and when I moved to Europe. Right. That album, I forgot how amazing that album is. The Professional? That song, The Professional? I forgot all about The Professional.
Professional's amazing. There's another one here that I thought for, which was like More to a Song I
More to a
forgot.
song.
That's when he's
The
really
jury in clothes. More to it. Money you hold.
That's
Think you know. I don't think you know.
I don't think
I mean,
man.
like, I mean, because all the biggest songs I think in his career are probably on that album, right? You've got, What These Bitches Want. You've got Party Up, obviously.
Up. Yeah,
like, he's got some big songs, big hits. Like Party Up's probably his biggest song. It's got to be his biggest song ever.
Party Up has to be up there. And What's My Name as well? I mean, that was huge.
What's my name? DMX.
But another one on... I love the way he rhymes like that. Fame's on there. Fame is one of my most underrated DMX tracks. Like, that man is tussling, and everyone says how he didn't think he deserved the love. Fame is that track. Listen to Fame, and that's the track where he's like, I don't know why I deserve all this, but I
forgot how great that album was.
Yes.
And I don't know why. Like, I mean, maybe it was a little bit more commercial in terms of like the biggest songs as I went forward in life at that point. Maybe it was. Yeah. Maybe I just didn't, maybe nostalgia hit me differently, and I was less nostalgic about the times that I was listening to that album versus, the level of nostalgia I have for It's Dark and Hell is Hot. Maybe I don't know, but that's the one I've been waking up in the morning. What's my name?
Do you know what? I feel so sorry for my neighbours, man, because it's just been a week of 7 a.m. just putting on, and it's not like chilled out. Like, it's just bangers. Yeah, love that. Yeah.
I went back and listened to Great Depression. That one came out when I lived in Europe, and I remember listening to that one a whole lot then. And that one I think has one of my favorite Damien tracks. Oh yeah. I don't think And Then There Was X had Damien on it, but that one had Damien 3 on it, I think.
Yes.
And that one was really hard.
Yeah, I love that.
So if there's something I'm looking back on, it's like, man, I forgot how great And Then There Was X.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I literally forgot how great that was.
I think that's so true. And reappraising these albums and going back and listening, you were saying there about Grand Champ. I remember thinking, I rinsed Grand Champ. Why did I rinse it so much? I don't understand why I rinsed it so much. And I listened to it again, and he leans so heavily into just bangers. Like, he's just going, I'm going to make every track as hot. Like, you can work out, and you'll probably put on more muscle weight than you thought because of that album. And it's a double album. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you have brought There Was X, because I needed someone to do that. So.
Yeah, that one, that feels like Thriller.
Yeah,
That's his Thriller to me. That one's got hit. Like,
yeah, man.
Like The Profession to me is like, want to be starting something or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in terms of like a B-side that is just so just hits me so heavy.
Yeah, man.
But DMX has some, like, that dude was a storyteller, man. When he was robbing you can see all the intricacies of the crime going down.
He'd tell you everything. He would tell you everything. Right. Exactly. Damn, man. Yeah. Well, Justin, man, I know I could spend hours with you, but we got like 8 guests and everyone's bringing these flavour. I'm glad you brought this, though, because I feel like when someone like yourself brings this perspective, we start thinking differently about these people who maybe in 97, 98, we were kids, man, or like we were young. I'm 40, man. I'm like going now, and to now I can go to my child and be like, maybe you want to listen to this, not because you're going to get hype and want to rob someone, but maybe it might help you, deal with things I can't help you deal with. And Justin, man, and I appreciate everything that you bring all the time, man, to this stuff. So, yeah, man.
As always, it's an honor, man. Thank you for having me, man.
I love that, Justin, man. And when your X video drops, I will be watching it because you're always good with the breakdowns. Everyone, go check out Justin's videos. YouTube's Company Man Media, right?
The Company Man on YouTube.
The Company Man on YouTube. Yeah. And we'll put all them details in the boxes and the comments and all that. So, man, thank you, Justin. I appreciate you. RIP X. And until the next time, man, I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. So, man.
We'll be talking soon. As soon as you get some time, man. I would love to have you on my channel, man.
Oh, man, love that. Definitely. Much love, bro. Much love. Right, peace, bro. Peace.
Peace.
So next up, we've got to go to one of our, favourite people in the hip-hop universe, of course, Dart Adams. He's come on the pod a few times, and when DMX passed, it was just one of them things where I was like, look, Dart's from a generation I've not been in, and obviously he brings that other perspective, and boy, does he. So yes, enjoy this little trip down memory lane and just getting another little dimension on the amazing career of DMX. Let's go. Boom. Dart, man. Thank you for jumping on, taking time out, and just talking to us. I mean, I hit you up past only a few days ago. Just wanted to see where you're at with it, bro, and what you've been thinking, what you've been feeling since it's been about a week. We heard he was in hospital. How have you been doing?
Unfortunately, it's been a stretch where there have been so many people that passed away, and we found out that they're ill. And then, of course, you know, in previous years, several of our peers and people we were fans of passed away too, or were ill. So it just gets to be a thing where you don't want it to bog you down, and you just have to find a way to just like cope with it. So it's this weird thing where it's like you're in denial, but you're not. You know it's real. And you're preparing yourself for the eventuality that they may pass. But when they still do, it hurts regardless. So it's this weird in between, especially being at this age, man. The 45, 50 space where you start seeing the ill health and like how some of the touring and the hard life that they had before, the music industry, the shit that they rapped about happened, catches up to people later on. And it's like, this music is entertainment, but it's their lives and their reality at the same time. And it hits you really hard in this age group I'm in right now, man. This demographic I'm in right now.
Yeah. It's, I think someone tweeted it, and it's just like, being a hip hop fan is just actually really hard. Like, more than most genres, it's just like there's so many people who pass, and it comes from, like you've said, a place where I was talking to my friend the other day, and I was like, can you believe we were in the clubs and on the streets and in the house parties, and this music was so like anthemic, yet this guy was going through so much turmoil to give us this music. And it's just a weird dichotomy, man, and it's hard to settle with that. I have to say, it is hard to settle with that.
I mean, just think about the fact that I think of all these Malik B verses. That man's not with us anymore. You know, on Twitter I posted Black Rob and the Locks, Can I Live? And seeing that video that was on Royce the 5'9's IG that made somebody make a GoFundMe. Like, that was a gut punch, especially after the loss of Mums, you know, who passed before DMX. And all those people we regarded as like legends, you know?
Yeah. Like,
the idea that Mums isn't here, when there was a documentary made about him starting in 96, 97, when he was part of the spoken word community in like the New Yorican, you know, poets club in New York. And then like the spoken word community and being in shows like Oz and doing films and Bamboozled, and he's not here. And like, he wasn't that much older than me, you know, and DMX 50, you know, I'm 45. So it's a lot to deal with.
I know, man. Going to that, because we've got a few different people from a lot of different generations, and it speaks a lot to X's just body of work and his legacy. For yourself, I was wondering, what was that first time he was on your radar as a head? Like, do you remember that? Could you break that down for us?
Absolutely. So the January 1991 issue of The Source listed DMX the Great as the unsigned hype, right? So between 1991 and 1992, like, you hear a few demo tracks. I played one on my IG. And like Critical Condition, it's called, right? And when you listen to Critical Condition, DMX, the Great back then, is like rapping really fast. He's spelling, he's doing all these things, telling everybody that like he's the creator of the Spellbound style. But in 1992, him and Ruff Ryders put out a 12-inch vinyl independently. The A-side was Born Loser, and the B-side was Catching the Same Hell.
Yeah.
Now, when you hear those songs, and you hear like the songs off the 4 songs that were on the demo for The Source, when he got picked for Unsigned Hype in 1991, January 91, which means that demo was made in 1990.
Damn.
We heard it in 1991. We heard those other extra 2 songs in 1992. And then he got signed to Rough House Columbia in January 93. And they put out Born Loser. They didn't use Catching the Same Hell. So the single was Born Loser. So DMX was signed to a major in 1993. Right? But then, like, things don't go the way he wants them to go. And then he falls back. So I'm sure you're familiar with Irv Gotti, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Irv Gotti at the time was known as DJ Irv. He has Cash Money Clip, of which Ja Rule is a member, was a member. He has Mike Geronimo, who's like the lead guy who we all thought was going to be like the dude to give Nas a run for his money, especially after his debut classic album, The Natural. And then, you know, there was DMX, who's also in that same, you know, periphery. He was also in that same crew, that same circle. And this is the TVT Blunt era, 94, 95. If you listen to Time to Build, you hear Jay-Z and DMX on the song, you know, with Mike Geronimo, Ja Rule.
Yeah. So
this is the DMX I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with DMX grinding from 1991 through like 1997, because I also posted a video of there was this interview / roundtable that they did with a bunch of MCs who were like notable, and among those MCs is John Forte, Mos Def, Cannabis, DMX, Big Pun.
Crazy.
Yeah. That happened December 18th, 1997, right? So this is the DMX I've always been familiar with. The guy who's been rapping, changing up his style here and there, but still had it. So when the mainstream or like another generation of kids hear him, you know, it's Get At Me Dog.
Yeah.
Or it's a guest appearance on 4 3 2 1.
That was for me, 4 3 2 1, yeah.
Yeah, 4 3 2 1. Or it's like I could give it to you, but what you gonna do with it? Guest appearance on you know, that soundtrack with J.O. Felony, you know, or like another song here or there, Shut 'Em Down with Onyx.
Onyx, yeah.
You know, so 98, he's like one of the like top draft picks. That's how they used to call him. Like he's like the Def Jam dude. He's like hot.
Yeah.
That's when they started using that word, 97, 98. Hot. And this is the shiny suit era, man. This is when a lot of us retreated to the underground, and now we're adopting the backpacker ideal. We're walking around playing company flow, you know, independent as fuck CDs and stuff like that, you know, listening to Raucous, listening to like all the like independent labels like Soul Sides at the time before it became Quantum, and like really embracing that ethos of underground indie rap. And at the same time, this is when rap becomes the biggest genre of music, surpassing country, surpassing pop, surpassing rock. And DMX is at the forefront of it. At the forefront of it. He's keeping the lights on at Def Jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's insane to think, right?
Yeah.
At a time when CDs are flying off of store shelves. I mean, DMX is up there in recognizability and like it's crazy to think that DMX, with the content that he had and who he was and the music he made, is up there as recognizable and as viable an artist as somebody who does pop music. Yeah. Like 98 Degrees, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, DMX will all be at Total Request Live with Carson Daly. That's crazy to think, right? Yeah. But that was the reality. In the shiny suit era, DMX shows up and he's like, no. You know what I'm saying? This is how things are going to go.
Stop being greedy.
Stop being greedy. And, you know, when you watch the documentary Backstage, you kind of forget that DMX was the closer of the previous tour. You know, the Survival of the Illest tour.
Yeah.
He closes the Survival of the Illest tour. Think of who's on that tour, right? You have Def Squad, who had gone gold, almost platinum.
Yeah.
You have Method Man and Redman, still ascending, right? You have Onyx, who blew up 92, 93, went back the fuck up, and then come out with their second album, All We Got Is Us. You have the new guy, Cormega, also on the bill too. But the guy that's the draw, who closes the show, who everybody's there to see, really, on that tour, is DMX. And then DMX is the guy right before Jay-Z to close it, because it's the Hard Knock Life tour, the next year. Yeah. And when you watch the documentary for Black Backstage, which came out in 2000, I saw not too far from here in a movie theater that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh my God.
And people in there smoking weed, and the ushers aren't trying to stop it because they're not trying to get beat up. And that documentary, that film, captured forever and ever a moment in time for rap history. And the big people in it are DMX and Jay-Z. You have Meth and Red in there too, but like they opened the show. They're there for like comics belief almost.
Yeah.
Everything revolves around Jay-Z and DMX. When they sell out a show, the guy who's in charge of the arena says, "This is the most seats ever sold by a Black artist in this arena." Whoa. And shakes his hand. "This is your fault, Jay-Z. This is you." And Jay says, "Peace to X." And then he says, "Peace to Redman, Method Man," and starts naming other people. But he says, "Peace to X first." Because him and X came up in this industry battling, grinding. And there's the famous story of them battling in the Bronx.
Unreal.
On neutral territory for 2.5 hours.
Imagine.
And if you go back and you listen to the demo recordings of DMX, and go back and look at all that old footage, a lot of it hasn't been liberated, but that dude would rap at the drop of a dime, and he was always ready, just like Jay-Z was. And you think about 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, not finding a real home, trying to figure it out, people saying, yeah, they're talented, but we don't know what to do with them. And then them getting their own agency. Ruff Ryders behind DMX. Jay-Z got Rockefeller. And then they become the hottest guys out, and people are starting to imitate them. Yeah. When for like the last 5 years, people were trying to figure out where they fit in. Yeah. Like that's DMX, right? He turned everything on his head. The man came out growling, barking, praying to start the show. Like, just think about all the things that he did and what he meant to so many people, man. And like, for me being older, DMX wasn't the end all be all for me, But if you are 4 or 5 years younger than me, that's your dude. You went out and you bought both of his albums that came out the same year. Yeah. I didn't buy those DMX albums. They were everywhere. Yeah. I didn't have to buy them. Yeah. I told the story about, I was working in record stores during this stretch. So it hit me completely differently to see a cross-section of people of every background imaginable buying DMX albums. I mean, it's different when it's ahead, right? It's different when you expect, oh, this person's going to buy the DMX CD. When you start seeing Junglist show up with a DMX CD, you're like, wait, what's going on? Yeah. When you see girls who love the Spice Girls and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera buying a DMX CD, then you start to like, what's happening
just the cover of Spice World with Flesh of My Flesh is crazy. It's crazy, but it happened, right? When you think about girls that are into like any type of like dance music, were buying DMX CDs. And when DMX a song was playing out of a car,
we used to have a game that we played where we would look and see who was actually in the car because it wasn't automatic. We were going to know who was driving around that car. And a lot of times we turn around, we look and see who's playing that DMX CD. He was like, didn't expect that.
Yeah.
That's who DMX was, man. He touched so many people. He reached so many people, and they were legitimately hurt and affected by his passing.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, just for you've said there about his demos. I remember hearing like, is it Three Little Pigs as well? Is on that demo?
Yes.
I think is that one? And I remember hearing it and thinking, this sounds nothing like. That sounds like someone who loves Rakim and like is from that school. Do you remember there being a time, like, was there any kind of evolution where you were like, oh no, this is the X that everyone loves? Because that ain't it. I don't think that is it on Three Little Pigs. I think. Well,
I mean, we got to remember that like rap between 1990 and like 1997, there's 3 different generations, right?
True. And
we talked about this. You could have put out an album in 1991, come out in 1994, and people don't want to hear you anymore.
Yeah, true.
Look at what happened with like Black Sheep. Black Sheep were on top of the world in 91 and 92. They put out their second album, Nonfiction, in 1994, and people were like,
yeah.
And they had a label deal. And that's kind of what happened with Onyx, right? Onyx puts out Back the Fuck Up in 93. They put out their second album, What We Got Is Us, which is an amazing album and a classic and probably their best album. But they didn't have the same reach. That album didn't even go gold. I thought it went gold. I had to look it up. It didn't go gold. I'm like, wait, it didn't at least go gold? And then I looked at the RIAA gold and platinum, and I'm like, I don't see it anywhere.
What were the singles of that? There was some singles.
Huh?
What was the singles of that?
So the first one being Last Days.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So Last Days was a big single off that. Alive was a single, but it was pretty much off the show soundtrack.
Right.
You know, so like there was How We Walk in New York. That's that album. Really gritty, grimy album. But like, this is the evolution of the music, right? So when we get to 94 and 95, this is when DMX figures it out. So by 95, there are songs that, you know, you find on mixtapes. Like, oh, there's a famous mixtape. The mixtape that just like sets everything off. Cannabis versus DMX by DJ Self in 1998. Side A is Cannabis. Side B is DMX.
It's crazy.
To me, this is the thing that let everybody know DMX is the new hot dude. Because Cannabis was on fire.
Yeah.
Cannabis was like the golden child. He was the next coming. Yeah. And as lyrical and as dense and as complex as he was, X hits you here. Here. On point, this is the Adidas logo. Here.
Yeah.
As a Bostonian. Like, that's where X got you.
Yeah.
And when you watch that scene from backstage where they're doing a cypher, whereas X and then DMX does his verse, Jay-Z does his verse, people are like, ooh. DMX does his verse, they're like, ooh. And then, you know, like, you know, the security guard comes out and you see Jay-Z's face as he's rapping, like, whoa, hey, this is hot. But when DMX did his verse after Jay-Z's, when you listen to the lyricism, the style, the dramatic effect, the pauses, the punchlines, even though those punchlines and those metaphors are super violent, it's so brilliant. You know, leave pinstripes across your windpipe. Like, what?
Yeah. I love how he's just smoking a cigarette through that. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And he's just like...
Put 2 through the pillow. Because my shit is brillo. What? Like, are you serious? And, okay, and one thing that I have to just, like, say before we go any further. DMX was so good. So great. People felt him so much that they overlooked some of Swizz's worst, trashiest beats. If you played me the Party Up beat by itself, I probably would have thrown you through a plate glass window. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many songs that DMX recorded and so many beats he rapped over and made classics out of. And I'm like, I hate this beat.
But
I hate it. But like Ruff Ryders Anthem is a classic, right?
yeah, yeah.
If you just played that beat for me in 1998, I would have stared at you like you had three heads.
Like he
you were
did, though.
sevens.
Like he did. He didn't like that beat, right? He even said it himself, right? He was like, I don't like the Ruff Ryders beat. And mad.
Yeah, and look at what he did with it.
Crazy.
Like, look at what he did with it. Like, I'm telling you right now, don't play those instrumentals. If I hear that beat, dun, 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 I better hear X's voice.
Yeah.
I better hear X's voice.
Yeah.
Better. But that's how great he was, man. Like, he took some production that I wasn't necessarily feeling. And, you know, that wasn't my chamber at all. But what X did with it,
I think it helped marry the Backpacker commercial bridge at that time. Because I remember even on something like them 3 albums came out like so quick. I remember there was something like It's Not All About Money. I can't remember what track it is. I think it's on There Was X, but there's a track on there where it's like it's not just about money. And I remember at that time being like, this is the anthem for us guys, because we don't like the flashy shit. We don't want, like, yes, it's good music, but it doesn't resonate with me. I haven't got a Benz, I haven't got a Beamer, but when X is talking over some beats that Jay-Z could easily be on, it's like he ain't talking about Benz and Beamers. He's talking about pit bulls and robbing.
Also, he would take over songs that weren't his. Money Cash Hoes. DMX took over Money Cash Hoes.
That's it.
4, 3, 2, 1. There's a video on YouTube, and it's been making the rounds on Twitter of a performance, LL Cool J 4, 3, 2, 1. And the clip is just DMX's verse, really.
Yeah.
And then they cut it out before you get to LL. And you know what? You don't miss it.
That's crazy, though, right? That's LL. And you still.
That's insane, right?
Yeah.
That's the draw.
Yeah.
X was the draw.
Yeah.
I could give it to you, but what you gonna do with it? DMX was the draw. I got more homes than an essay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
I know. That was my. And the video as well. I think the video helped. The ski mask, the pit bulls, the everything. Fucking crazy. I loved that little journey you took us on there, Dar. I was just going to ask you, just to leave it, was like, just some of your favourite X memories, because my timelines have been full of him at Albanian weddings, of him, like, you know, like just doing crazy stuff. I just want to know some of your favourites, like just some of the ones that, you know, you always think back to with X.
Okay. Favorite DMX memory? Wow. Anytime he did a live show, I didn't own DMX albums. Okay.
Right.
Because everybody had them. Because I heard those songs everywhere I went. But DMX is doing a live performance. If it's on TV, if someone has it on tape, I'm watching it. I didn't have his albums, but I have Live at 215, the Hard Knock Life tour. I have the Backstage. I have the Survival of the Illest tour VHS. I have that. So like DMX's live performances, his shows, anytime he showed up in something, those are my favorite moments. Craziest moment, especially related to Boston, is the Locks DMX fight that they had with Made Men and the Legion of Doom. That is one of the craziest memories because they will be forever tied together because of that, a thing that happened in Boston. And it's just crazy because everybody got to walk away with it.
Yeah.
And everybody got to walk away from it. And everybody got to squash everything afterwards. And the fact is that they have a song called Tommy's Theme together, produced by Boston's own, Hangman 3.
Yeah.
The Locks and Made Men for the soundtrack of Belly. And that video was nuts too. So it's all hilarious, man. It's crazy. But yeah, man, DMX and DMX was at the center of why everything jumped off. But there's just so many stories about DMX from other people and their relationship with him and him being human. And I think that's the biggest thing. He wasn't he was larger than life, but their stories humanized him.
Yeah.
He was a normal guy. And then then at the same time, man, how many times have I read stories about DMX doing a concert, starts talking about his grandmother crying. Nobody's dissing him. Nobody's making jokes. They're like, yo, I feel that.
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother was a big part of my life. And when she passed away, that, you know, was a hole in me.
Yeah.
DMX being so open about something like that and his past trauma made other people address theirs. Can you imagine? The man prayed on stage before shows and at the end of his own shows. And people did not clown that man for that. Why would you?
Yeah.
Like, just to be that open is insane, right?
Yeah.
And have people just like, yo, rethink what's real. And then the other part about it is like, just he changed the entire dynamic of everything, right? With the music, with what an artist is supposed to be, how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to treat the industry. He was very indignant to being a Def Jam employee, signee, right? Because of how they treated him. He went off and did movies, did other stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And when you asked him, he told you why.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't hold his tongue.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. He was explicit.
A lot of people don't want to fuck up the money, man. And then the other thing is that he was very open with people. He did movies like Exit Wounds, you know, other stuff. And then you would ask the cast, what was it like working with X? It was this. We had fun, but also he left us waiting so much that like we came up with a song, Waiting for DMX. And then when X comes out, rather than be salty about that, he joins them singing the song.
That's crazy.
I put them through hell. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Not being mad. But and this is what endeared him to him. That's why like when what's her name? Gabrielle Union tells stories about DMX. She recalls being around him fondly, even though they kind of got her to do everything because they were scared of him. And she was like, she goes, pets the dogs, and goes and hangs out with him and watches Golden Girls. And she's like, who's just a person, you know?
Yeah.
He's Earl.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of things, man, this beautiful, all these stories humanize him, man. And he was a person, he was a dude dealing with struggles. He had his demons, but he actively fought them. They ended up winning, but he actively fought them. And he was open about his bouts with depression, open about his bouts with substance abuse, open about the traumas that he faced. Why? Because there's a whole generation, multiple generations of people that bury it all and tuck it under, and it eats away at them. And they won't get therapy. They won't talk to anybody. And X did that through his music, man. It was cathartic.
Yeah.
And he kind of like, he's like, I might not get saved. I might not find salvation. I may not make it to the other side, you know what I'm saying, unscathed. But you still have hope. You still can.
That's crazy.
You know, to use me in my example.
Yeah. Dark, man. I can't think of a better way to end it, because I think that's exactly what drew me to him and what makes us love him. For all his frailties, all his stuff that goes on in his life. Yeah, that's it. Man, Dart, thank you. Thank you for that, bro. I really appreciate that. People do go check out Dart's work. Dart Adams, great Twitter follow anyway, but your writing's always on point. The book is good, the Book of Dart, obviously. And man, we've done some episodes already, haven't we? The Gangstar one was dope. You jumped on, unfortunately, the MF Doom memorial that we did, the tribute. You brought it for that as well. So yeah, hopefully we'll have you on again. But people, go check out Dart, and Dart, man, keep doing your thing and bringing them flames, bro.
No doubt, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Peace.
I won. Right
then, next up, I hope you're enjoying this DMX journey, by the way, because I'm loving it. Right then, next up, we have got Zilla Rocca from Call Out Culture, just one of my favourite rap podcasts anyway, but also just a great voice in rap, all of them are, and it was nice to have him on, and I know DMX means a lot to him as a rapper, as everything, so yeah, it was good to hear from him, and he brought some great stories about X, so yeah, man, check it out, boom. But Zilla, man, thank you for jumping on.
No doubt. Yeah, man.
I know, like, it's only been a few days since X passed, but
I'll put this one on.
Oh, there we go. The man himself, the king.
Yeah.
Bro, how are you doing with it? And how have you been feeling?
It's weird, man. It's been interesting only because before he passed, I was like listening to him all week anyway. And then since he passed, where I live in Philly, it's like everyone else talking about, like every car going by, everywhere I'm going, everyone just playing DMX. And it's kind of shocking. Like I picked up a pizza yesterday. I walk in a pizza shop. It's like older white dude, younger white dude, Mexican dude, DMX. I get out of my car. I walk to my car 10 feet and a dude who's like Trans Lives Matter, rainbow flags, pink mohawk, pink socks, playing DMX. I was like, he's like a folk hero, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, he definitely does hit so many corners that you do think like, oh, there aren't many rappers, especially rappers, who do that.
Seriously.
You know? The metal crowd. I had someone on Twitter telling me that she used to go to metal shows and they play X, they drop X at metal shows. And that, man, yeah.
It's amazing.
Crazy. I mean, we've all had our own experience. I think the one thing I've learned over this week is the amount of personal experiences. Like, everyone has shows, everyone talks about the lyrics, everyone can go into the music, but the personal experiences with X, it feels like he's really close to people's hearts. So for yourself, man, I just wanted to kick it off. Like, what was your first experience of X? How was that?
It was probably in '97 when he was on the Mace album on 24 Hours to Live.
Yes.
Which blew my brain. And then he did a hook on Take What's Yours. And at the time, I did not want to like Mace. Mace was like, you know, you drew the line in the sand. I'm like, you know, I don't like this jiggy commercial rap. You know, I'm all about the culture and the elements and the purity.
Yeah.
And Mace stood direct in opposition to that. And so, but all my friends would play the Mace record, the album. Like, I'd only knew the singles. And when I heard the album in people's cars or people's house, I would hear Take What's Yours with DMX. And I'm like, all right, I kind of like love this song. You know what I mean? Like, brothers want to shout, I'ma make noise. Brothers run their mouth, I'ma break joy. And I was always like, and then I heard 24 Hours to Live, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'll like this song because it has the locks on it, Black Rob and DMX. And then when 4321 hit, because I was a massive Cannabis and DMX fan, I retweeted it too the other day where like there was this famous CD called DMX vs. Cannabis.
Yeah.
It was a mix CD. And I bought it in front of a subway station in South Philly. It was like a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
So when I heard that and I could just hear like all of his features next to Cannabis, like those two guys made me just want to make music officially. Like I was, you know, a big rap fan my whole life. But that summer was hearing them and seeing them, and then the 4321 video with him and like how he moved, stay out the dark, because if I catch you when the sun is down, like his movements, like him and ODB, like the way they moved, like no one moved like that. It was very, you know what I mean? He's like, wherever it's gonna go, it's gonna be. Like he always was like tilting his head. Yeah. And just watching him was just like, he was very visual. So that whole like 97 going into 98 with him, and then the build up for that album, you know, he was even on like Ice Cube We Be Clubbing remix. You know what I mean? Like, like Ice Cube was getting him. Like everyone was just grabbing him to elevate their own lane and their own spot. You know, the Mike Geronimo joint, Usual Suspects. Like, so I was just hearing those moments and those songs. And then when, I don't know what it was like for you guys, when The Day It's Dark and Hell Is Hot came out, like I was a teenager, so I was 16. So all of us were like all day waiting, like we're all going to go en masse to the record store together. And we did. There was like 30 of us going, like, I'm here, like, let's get it. And then everybody the next day coming back being like, did you hear Damien? Did you hear the convo? Did you hear fucking with D? it was like,
yeah,
if you're a teenager, like he just got a hold of you forever. Like all the aggression and angst, and even if your life wasn't difficult, you felt like this guy is like raw power and energy. But then he would have like the prayer and the convo, and I was in a Catholic school, so like you heard those songs, you're just like, oh, I learned about these things forever.
Yeah.
So he's talking about that from a very real experience. So it was just like the total package. Like it was just that whole year and a half. It was just like he was unstoppable. Like I don't know anybody that was like, I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true though, right? It was that moment where it was like, everyone liked him. That's the weird thing. For what he was rapping about,
right?
Like, that's not
even
easy
women.
thing.
Women, like, how's it going down? Because he was a handsome dude. He was like muscular, but not like in a chiseled beefcake way. Just like had the shirt off all the time, and he was just unapologetic. I mean, every woman I knew loved DMX.
Yeah. You were saying there about the convo. I think we've all reappraised his music over the years anyway, but it is more poignant when he's ill and in hospital. And every time he's been ill, or like, do you remember that photo in the noughties? I remember that was the first time I started worrying about DMX. Was he was wearing a Def Leppard t-shirt coming out of court or something, and he looked so skinny at that time.
Yeah.
I was so worried. I remember reappraising his music then, and it's amazing he's still here, and it was still here till then. Right. And you were saying there about the convo. I was listening to that, and I was like, look, his crazy life, the angst, the anger, it all comes through in that track. In just not even the lyrics, just his delivery. He screams those bars, man, crazy.
He was just like really talented. It's just not holding anything back. Like you just knew from the beginning, like this is a person with a lot of struggles. And on his multi-platinum debut, on his multi-platinum follow-up, like there was no, like it took Jay-Z years and albums and to really start opening up in full about what his insecurities were. Like Jay was always like, like I'm kind of like the bulletproof Don, like I'm really cool. And he would have like little moments, like a verse here or one song here, where his extra in the beginning, like even like Let Me Fly, like I've been playing that the most lately. Just him talking about all the, like, it just always felt like death could happen to him at any moment. And he was aware of it, but not like in a Tupac way of, like Tupac was like literally an actor. He was a literal actor who was conflicted, versus like DMX was like a real street dude. And he put it in a way of like that fear and paranoia of things he had did that was horrible, whatever they were. Like him always basically waiting for the chickens to come roost. You know what I mean? Like, it was versus, I feel like Tupac was using it as a way to introduce some danger, and it ultimately caught up to him based on the people he was around. And he tricked everyone into thinking he was a real street dude, whereas like DMX was like
a real street dude.
A real street dude.
Mate, the fact that Suge Knight was like, this is the rawest rapper I've heard. When Suge Knight's saying that, and obviously it didn't work out, but I've heard these things and you're like, that's real. That's real raw, man. Yeah. Yeah,
he was a scary dude too. Like when scary people hear DMX, like, oh yeah, he's authentic. I kind of feel like, again, I'm not well versed in that world, but I kind of take those experts at their word for it.
Yeah, I was. You said there. I know you mentioned Pac, and quite a few people have mentioned Pac and Biggie and The Void and all this. None of that was on my radar as a kid. Obviously, Biggie and Pac, they were dons of the game at that time. Right. But I do remember one thing when X came out. There were a few things that just married. It wasn't Pac. He wasn't being Pac. It was just the same energy and almost like thread of consciousness, because he was like not ripped, but he had tattoos, and he would wear a bandana and a chain. But they were so different to Pac's. Pac's were pristine, artistic tats. Yes. His is like one love boomer scratched into his back, and there was the difference for me where I was like, wow, that the guy is like, and also I did post this, but the intro to Dark and Hell is Hot.
Right.
That track, for me, it's one of my favourite X tracks anyway, because I remember hearing it on the radio first. But there's one moment in it where no one's rapping and they're using almost like skits from somewhere. And as a kid, I thought it was Pac from Juice, but it wasn't. But it's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck, like that in the back.
Right.
And at that time as a kid, I was like, wow, I'm getting the same feeling and that same thing is, and Pac's not here anymore, but hearing him on that, yeah. So I think there are parallels a little bit.
There are, but I think X like truly had nothing to lose. Like Tupac was doing those things while he's in the movie Juice, while he's auditioning for Menace to Society. Like he literally had an acting degree. You know, he was in Digital Underground. He was on Interscope. Like he was going to be like an orator and a spokesman and a fireball of controversy. But Pac was like major label set even before he sold however many million. Like he was in that world at 21, 20. Yeah. He was in the movie Nothing But Trouble when he was like 20, when movies trash, but he's in like major movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Dark and Hell is Hot came out when X was like 27.
Yeah.
You know, like later on in his life, after he had been through Columbia Records and Born Loser and all this, like he truly had nothing left to lose. Like there was nothing. So even if that album came out and it flopped, like I think he would have still been the same rapper. Like it, everything on there it's just the rawest thing possible. And then as he started ascending, he just kept doing it. That like he never switched.
Yeah.
And the more I listen to his stuff, like his albums like aren't really great after the first couple. They're not. But there's so many iconic moments and songs, and they're almost always him. It's not like him and Juvenile, him and Nas, him and Jay, him and Mary J. Blige. His biggest songs like Party Up, him, but Swizz doing a hook, but it's him, and then Get It On the Floor. Like he's bigger than Swizz. At no point did he be like, if I don't have a single with Missy, I can't come out this year because she's hot. If I don't have a single with, I don't know, Total, I can't come out. If I don't have a single with Snoop, no, he carried all of the weight. Like Get At Me Dog is just him with Sheek Louch on the hook. I mean, I kind of did more for Sheek. Like, it didn't really mean anything. No one was like, oh, I'm going to play Get At Me Dog because of Sheek Louch on the hook, and I love Sheek. But like X just, he was the guy everyone went to get themselves hot. Yeah. He was like the event. And then on his own album, the songs, he was still the event. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he never relied on people to pad the credits. Yeah. Even as that got more fun. He just didn't. It wasn't like, all right, now I need to get Lil Wayne because he's hot. Okay. Yeah. Got to get Cameron because he's hot. Yeah. It's like, I'm hot. Like, yeah. It never changed. Exactly. Up to Grand Champ as well. I know on Grand Champ, I was been bumping that again, and although those albums are like, I think he leans heavily into bangers, just bangers on Grand Champ. It's just like, that's all I'm going to do right now, and which is fine. But I also feel like a double album is a lot, man, when you're doing that. But because of this week, I mean, there's been so many crazy stories and things have been relived, from him on roller coasters to him, like, you know, just dissing Drake and all this shit. I was wondering for yourself, just some of your favorite memories of X. Like, do you have any that have come through in this last week where you've been like, man, what a man? I remember my ex-girlfriend from college. She told me a story. She was in London. She was studying abroad for the semester, and this is like 2002 or 3. This is kind of like the beginning of him fizzling out of, you know, being the height of the heights, where he's like moving down, because like once you get to that time, that's kind of like Cash Money, Rockefeller, like the sounds were changing, Sonic, the same way he kind of took it from Bad Boy and made it his thing. Then people started moving away from that, like G Unit, they started becoming bigger. So he's kind of like very slowly on the downslope in terms of popularity. But anyway, my ex-girlfriend was in London, and they were at some bar. They're all college kids from the States. And DMX is in there on like a Tuesday night with him and like 3 or 4 security dudes, like just playing pool. What? At some random bar in London. And so they see him and they're like, oh my God. And so they're like, hey, can we get a photo with you? And he kept being like, he's like, hey, like I have an unbelievable headache. He was just like drinking soda. He was like, my head's pounding so bad. Like, I really don't want to do a photo with you guys right now. But like before I leave, you know, I'll make sure I do a photo. But my head hurts. So he's like, why don't you guys get some drinks on me? So he just got all these college kid drinks. And then they just like, he was like playing pool by himself. And then before he left, he's like, hey, I just want to take that picture with you. Wow. And I remember she showed me the picture. Like, and he's just kind of standing there with a pool cue, like kind of annoyed because he's in pain. Yeah. And they're all like, you know, college kids. Shit. And then he was like, all right, you know, have a good night, everybody. And just kind of left. You know what I mean? And by that point, he probably had sold, I don't know, 10 million records. Unbelievable. So, unbelievable. I remember hearing that. But I also remember like he, for me, it was just, I kind of dipped off of him around that time too. Like I just kind of moved on in my taste, whatever. And then seeing, you know, him like doing the Snoop verses and him doing Drink Champs, like seeing him like kind of hit that spot of like, all we want to remember from you now is like the biggest things you meant to us. You know what I mean? Like we don't need new records. We don't need you trying to recapture that. And he said on Drink Champs, he's like, if I died now, like I had a good life.
Yeah.
And I remember when he said that, and I was kind of like, yeah, bro, like,
yeah,
it's amazing you were at this age.
Yeah.
And, you know, so those are just like the things I just thought about. I don't have any like connections to him personally beyond just being, you know, a massive fan, but also just thinking back to that Cannabis DMX CD. And we talked about it on our show on Call Out Culture about Cannabis. Like he is straight up like one of the reasons I was like, okay, I want to try rapping.
Yeah.
Like I love these people so much, and I studied them, and him and Nori and Wu and all that. Like he was in that last run of guys where like I stopped being just a consumer and a fan.
Yeah.
And I started like being a creator and contributor. It's like he was one of the last people that pushed me over the edge. So like I'm always he's always gonna mean a lot to me for that. Even when I just stopped checking his music after a while, which is, you know, fans, you know, we're flimsy. You know, we come and go.
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
That's how everybody is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't hear
promiscuous.
many people. Yeah. I don't hear many people like talking about Grand Champ and the same level. Do you know what I mean? But I do understand.
Seriously.
There were moments when he would do like, I know he was going to do Rap Gods 2 and stuff like that. There was some hype here. And this is from 40-year-olds who first saw him in the UK 20 years ago. And we were at them first UK shows. And those first UK shows were so insane. I'd never been to anything like that before. And or since probably. Like maybe some Jay-Z gigs I've been to in some gully nightclubs. But like they've not been... there's just something about X at that time, that the atmosphere, that there was a gravitational pull. Like it just brought so many different types of people. And sometimes not the most desirable people you want to be next to in a mosh pit, you know? You're like, am I going to? Yeah, I don't know. But you still went in. You were 19. You thought, fuck it, why not?
Exactly.
But exactly. But I mean, I suppose one note to maybe leave this chat on, it was going to say was like just the songs probably. And I was wondering like if there were songs that maybe you have re-liked since you first heard them, or I know you mentioned the Convo, I know you mentioned a few of those, but are there any that you're hitting home a bit more now?
Well, it's funny too. I remember this too, as you're talking about that. When I was 16 and I was playing baseball all the time, and we like our team like motto before we would play the game is we'd all put our hands in and we would go, "Where my dog's at? Right here, dog." Like he every basketball practice, football game, any sports with kids when he was out, like he had to be the music for it. Yeah. And I was even talking to Griff, Jason Griffin from Insubordinate Records. He was like, he's like, I hated DMX at first because when I was in high school, all the asshole football dudes I hated would just always play DMX. Yeah. So I associated him with those people. And he's like, I didn't really start liking him until like 7-8 years ago when I just started, I'll just give him a shot now. Like I haven't been in high school forever. Yeah. And so like I started going back to like more of his features. And like I even tweeted like, that's when I realized like he had the best voice ever, period. He has the best voice in rap because you could put him on an Aaliyah song, Back in One Piece. You can put him on a J.O. Felony song. I can give it to you, but what you gonna do with it? Like you could put him on that. You could put him on Swizz. You could put him on, I mean, his voice worked. Like there's certain people like their voices can only hit certain spots. Like a nasally like Be Real or Danny Brown voice, you can't put them on certain production because their voice clashes with that. And then you can have other people that have smoother voices, but they don't have any power. Yeah. So it's an interesting dynamic. With him, you could put him on any type of record, and that voice was so gravelly. But then he would do this voice and rap like this. Yeah, you know what I mean? And then on to like Damien, and he would, or even like Stop Being Greedy. He's like, "Did about the rap shit, pray for the one. I want the money. Give me the honey. I'm crooks, want my passion. Eyes wide open." Like, that's hard to, and that's a single. That's a huge song. And so I just started thinking about his voice more, where everyone's like, "Oh, you know, Q-Tip has the best voice. Chuck D, Guru," and I'm like, no, it's DMX. We just didn't want to say it because he was so big. Yeah. But that voice, like, the pain in it, the power, the strength, the charisma, the doubt, the worries, the characters, him doing different characters. Like he just had the best voice because even as he got older and like his songs weren't as relevant, you hear that voice, you know what that is, that growl. Like to me, that's what I've just been really like sitting with the most. You know, like even like I was playing Pull It with him and Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron sounds like a little kid next to him. He's like, oh, but that's easy, and he's like, oh, let's get it on, baby. Like and I love Cam like so much, but he just pushed Cameron out of the way. It's like, this is your song, it's my record. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, so you hear that when you put him with certain people, like he's always going to win out because of that voice.
Yeah.
Even if the other person is technically better versus, you know, rhyme schemes or punchlines, you can't touch that voice. So that's the biggest thing I've learned. Not so much like one song, but it's like hearing him on all these different productions from all that time. I'm like, he always works. You're never like, that he doesn't fit.
Yeah. It's interesting because his voice as well, I think married up to that, some of his hook writing and harmonies are so infectious to either bring your whole crew, because it's a bigger piece of cake for me to chew a hole through. I remember that being one of the hardest things I've ever heard in my life. And then also like One More Road to Cross. Like even later, he started just doing things that, it's almost like, you know, when he talks and you hear him on Drink Champs, or if you hear him doing a sermon, or you hear him doing anything, it's almost like he's such a measured, it's kind of jittery, but it's also measured in like in bullets, like in like quick, he'd be like, and you're like, even the way he talks is like that.
Yes.
And then, man, when it translated to him just flipping it, and he was playing women on tracks, and he was doing, and you're like, wow, this guy is just.
And you can see you can hear where Kendrick got a lot of his style from.
100%.
The more you listen to X, you hear where like Kendrick doing like, I am a sinner, no probably, you know, and then the rest of the verse, he's like cool voice. But even him on like Nostalgia, I want to see a dead body. I'm the troubles on my mind. I keep them crying. That's all. Like X, when I found out, you know, since he passed, like all he listened to was like disco and classic R&B and like boogie records. Yeah, that was like all he played beside his own music and stuff. You catch like how fluid and how like how many pockets there are in those songs, and how like his inherent musicality. Because I only heard like the older stuff he was like Born Loser, and before they would kind of rap like Rakim.
I thought
when you hit like when you hit like that one song he did, like the Make a Move with Irv Gotti, like 94, where it's basically like a Black Moon beat, and he's basically rhyming on that joint how he would rap the rest of his life. I gotta make a move. It was just everything about it. There was just so much. Again, like even if the bars weren't like Cannabis level writing, he's way more interesting to listen to than Cannabis. Yes. And I love Cannabis. You know what I mean? Because but again, that comes from like disco. Disco is not one thing the whole song. Boogie songs, like R&B, there's changes, there's bridges, there's choruses, there's like parts where you're really sad and parts where you're really hype, and then parts where you come down. Like, I think he just kind of absorbed that all of that time and just did it. And it's, again, he could just be on anything. Like his voice, like I've been saying to people, his voice was LeBron James. Like you could take LeBron James, put him on any team in the NBA, and it's going to work. You put DMX voice on any type. He was going to do like a lot of dubstep songs before he died too, like more festival, like EDM joints. Yeah, fits perfectly on that. Limp Bizkit, he fits perfectly on that.
Yeah, he fits perfectly into a Sum 41 video, bro. I'd forgotten about that. I was like, what? Hold on, he's just in this video with a quad bike. I forgot about this. But yeah, like I do feel that, and I love that. And I think some of my more favourite moments of X, just making me feel good, like sharing them on socials and stuff, is just him listening to disco or Michael Jackson or whatever, and just like it's nice to see him happy, right? It was like, wow, like. Yeah, I mean, it's just so sad now. That's maybe even more sad now thinking about it. But I'm glad that we can celebrate the music, and I'm glad that we can sit together now, bro, and just go through it. And yeah, I really appreciate all that, man. That means a lot just for you to bring some of them stories, because it just rounds the person's, you know, impact even more, man. So yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
I went back and just watched like parts of like the Ruff Ryders documentary with him.
Yeah.
When he was young, and like all the stuff he went through in his life. I mean, he really. It was a blessing, like for him to hit those highs, affect so many people. Unfortunately, passed when he did. I mean, 50's really young, but he said like on Drink Champs, like, I just had a great life. Like all of that, all the horrible things he experienced in his life, he used it and then he shared it. And then other people, I'm sure, that were in really dark spots, like when I was 16 and heard the prayer, I had no real struggles. I mean, my life was pretty great, you know what I mean, in comparison. But that song like made me freeze, being like, whoa, I never heard this on a rap song. And so whatever healing and vulnerability and angst he went through, people could gravitate, because it's just like you said, like there's so many high energy like MOP type of records and acts that make you want to go see them because you just want to punch a stranger in the face. But he would, how many are going to break down crying during their set too, like he would? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's a different level of vulnerability is power. And so the fact he was always brave enough to share that from his first album to Drink Champs to everywhere else, it's like he never compromised. He's like, to me, he's like Allen Iverson. Like he just never compromised and he just was always himself. And if people didn't want that for a while, he was okay with that. Yeah. He was still going to be him. He wasn't like, all right, I gotta talk Southern now. I gotta get Little John. What do I gotta be on Drake. I gotta sing. He was just like, so like we said, like now that he passed and everyone is just playing it again, it's like they're the same records. It's the same stuff. There's no like, ooh, this is when he tried to link up with, you know, No Limit. And like, no, he was just like, if you don't like me anymore, cool. This is just what I'm going to be. I don't care what the tastes are. Yeah. And that's a lot of power and strength to be that, to have that much conviction, you know what I mean? Which I think is, as an artist, like that's really inspiring. Yeah, 100%, man. What a brilliant point to end it on, man. Absolutely. Inspiring authenticity. I love that. Everyone do go check out Zilla Rocca and all the boys, man, on Alaska and Curly Castro. Big up. Mate, Call Out Culture is always good. You've been talking about DMX generally anyway before all this, so I've been in that mode, man. Weird. I've been in that mode, that X mode. Me too. Yeah, me too. So people, go check out that podcast. We've already got an episode in the can that will be coming at some point after this anyway. But yeah, Zilla, man, thank you for coming on. Big up, and hopefully we'll get you on again at some point, I'm sure. Love to hear from you, bro. Always. Thanks for having me, man. Peace, bro. Peace. Peace, man. I'll see you. So next up, we've got just one of the biggest DMX fans I know, Ill Will, music journalist, TV pundit, and cultural commentator. He really knows his stuff, and man, he really loves X, and that comes through now, man. So yes, let's go check it. Boom. Thank you for coming on. I know it's been just crazy. This last week's been crazy, I know, for yourself, and I know you're a massive, massive DMX fan. So it's only right we had to hit you up and just, you know, see how you're doing, what's been on your mind, how you've been feeling. I mean, break it down for me, brother. What's been going on with you, bro?
I mean, it's been very tough because, you know, music is obviously very cathartic for a lot of people. It's kind of a refuge, and you know, there are certain artists that we all love more than others, and for different reasons. And someone like a DMX, like a Tupac, like an Eminem, all these kind of greats that really, it was more than just music on the surface. There was a lot more below it. It made you feel something. So someone like a DMX played a huge part in my upbringing because I was there, you know, with the 98 explosion. 97. The 97 explosion when he signed a Def Jam. And there wasn't a day that I wasn't without his music. Whether it be the features, whether it be the albums, the movies. It was, you know, from bootlegging a copy of Belly because you couldn't get it in the UK on a VHS. I bootlegged it onto VHS and watched it at college. Like, he was never away from my Discman or my mini disc player when I upgraded. And he just, because he took everybody else's pain and put it on himself. It wasn't just the pain of people around him. It was the people that was listening to his music. And, you know, I went through a lot as a child. I have a lot of trauma pinned to my life. And he played a huge part in kind of cushioning that. So he played a huge role and meant a lot to me. So when I found out about his passing, I mean, because of what I do as a journalist, I've had to cover the news throughout the week of when he went into the hospital. And I was just praying, and I had so many people hit me up from the States, and people that are very close to his team hit me up and kind of filling me in on bits. And I was just hoping and praying, and people were saying, you know, you should prepare to write some obituaries and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm just not going to do that right now. I just want to pray, and like, because I don't want to think of the worst. This is DMX. This is a superhero to me.
Yeah.
And then when I found out the news, I was broken. And I mean, you know, you and I briefly text, and the thing was, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I felt like I'd lost a family member. It's really strange to say that when, you know, I know a lot of artists, and I'm friends with a lot of artists, and I've met a lot of artists, but I'd never met DMX, but I felt like I knew him. And I have cried every day since, at the most random intervals. And it's not even just hearing a song. I might literally have a memory in my head from my childhood, and I just start crying. So I didn't want to talk to anybody. And today is actually the first day where I've kind of been like, right, when you invited me to do this, it was like, right, I need to prepare and do this. And then I actually had to write, I ended up having to write 2 tributes, and then a bit like, one was a tribute, one was an obituary for 2 big publications. And I felt like I was in a zone. I just wrote them and didn't really feel anything. I mean, I teared up a bit writing one, but then I just kind of was in this zone. As soon as I finished the last one and they got published, this weight dropped, and that's when the tears came. I had to go for walks and all that. So being honest, bro, it's really cut deep. And I've struggled with it, but I feel like talking about it now is helping, and just listening to the music, and just, you know, I just love seeing the reaction, because I felt like for a little while he was forgotten, because he had to disappear into rehab and prison and all these different things he had to endure. And I felt like his name wasn't being brought up enough. I always talked about him, always. And there were other people that I know talked about him. But in the grand scheme of things on the commercial spectrum, I felt like people forgot. Watching Swiss Beats' video broke my heart. Just the things he said broke my heart. And I've spent time with Swiss, and I've spoken to Swiss personally about DMX and the stories of them recording It's Dark and Hell is Hot in the basement of Swiss Beats' friend, Grady Spivey is his name, in his basement. But again, seeing everybody sharing all these stories, it has been such a nice, warm feeling too, to know that he really is. He's an icon. He is a legend. People throw that word around so easy.
Yeah.
DMX is a legend. It's just so nice to see him get the props that he has always deserved, and that have been there, but maybe haven't been as magnified.
I remember in my immediate surroundings, there was no hip hop, but I know it's a very lazy comparison, but it's a very pertinent one. I remember Kurt Cobain. There was a lot of people around me who maybe didn't tell me what they were going through, but they held on to Kurt so tightly. When X came out, that's the same. Like, that same feeling I feel. We've had listeners messaging us saying, he helped me through cancer. He helped me through these moments in life that we find in art, in celebrity, in people we put up on such high pedestals sometimes, and people who aren't ready for being put there. I feel X, he had such an incredible life. When you say that it's nice to see all these videos and people sharing these stories, one thing that hits me is like, for everything he went through as a kid, to have lived a life like that, it's pretty inspiring. It's very inspiring.
It's incredible, because he had this energy that is unmatched by anybody. I don't care who you pit against him. No one has the energy. People have segments of that energy, like a Busta Rhymes has a animated part of that energy. Eminem has a part of that energy. Tupac is probably the closest comparison I can ever have. It's like, you know, people did say, and I've said it before, it was like he was the second coming of Tupac, but there was a more personal nature for me, because Pac is the be all and end all for me, and is the person who essentially saved my life. But then I you know, DMX did that for me as well. And, you know, as we chat, I can kind of go into that. But his energy was just, it's unfathomable, because he believed that he didn't deserve it. He didn't. He felt he didn't deserve the adoration. He didn't deserve the awards and the praise. He was always questioning. It was like he had imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And he constantly talked about it. But no matter how often he talked about it and what he went through, he kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it honestly came down to the fact that he was just real. It's like there's a Big Crit lyric where he says, if it don't touch my soul, I can't listen to it. And I actually have that lyric tattooed on me because it means that much. When you hear those opening chords on Slippin' and the wind noises and what they did, and then obviously going into the Grover Washington Jr. sample, it's mind-blowing because it puts you in a trance. You're hypnotized. You tell me how many records do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're a fan of. And I know Slippin' is like the record everybody talks about, but there's a reason for it because of everything I just said. Nobody does music like that. Yeah. I mean, of course there are people that do, but what I'm saying is for the purpose of our conversation, no one did it like him. And something that always gets overlooked, I don't know how many people actually tapped into his Undisputed album, which came out in 2012. There's a sequel to Slippin' on there. And when you listen to that record, his voice is different for a start. And a lot of it has to do with what he had been through and, you know, as the drugs and going to prison and, you know, his asthma was getting even worse. And I just think his soul as well was just so like downtrodden at this point. At the end of that record, you hear him let out this almighty cry. And if you don't feel anything when you listen to that, then you are not a human being. And that's what his music did. So when you say, you know, it's nice to see the videos and things and me just saying that, that's why. Because he made people feel things. He saved people. He was a salvation for people. He was a runaway. You know, I'll put it like this. The way that he took people's pain away and made it his own, he really did it like no one else did. And that's one of the things that struck me the most about him. Because it hit me hard and it touched me. You know, you mentioned it. We all know that he had an awful upbringing. It's well documented. And I don't talk about it often, but, you know, I did mention it earlier. I suffered a lot of trauma as a kid, some really horrible stuff. I was in excruciating pain, physically, mentally, spiritually. And this is at a time when I didn't really understand what the spirit was. You know, I was 14, 15, around 97, 98. And his whole music and his whole being saved me more times than I'll ever actually know. His faith was unwavering.
Yeah.
He battled so much of his inner demons, but he knew he wasn't on his own. He made sure that people knew that God was with him every step of the way. And he always gave praises to the Most High, you know, and he was always praying at his show. And while I'm not, and I never really have been religious, I do believe in a higher power, and I'm at one with the universe, and I'm a big believer of what you put into it comes back to you, and I believe in that energy. And it was X that opened that up to me, the possibility of that through his prayer and through his faith-based lyrics. I wouldn't be surprised if DMX and the way he was with his faith and how he put it out there, and he had a prayer on every album, inspired Kanye in some small way, opening the door to speak about God and faith on records, like big records, commercial records, the way that he did, like with Jesus Walks and obviously more recently with the Sunday service stuff. He told you every day who he was, and he knew exactly who he was. He was conflicted, but he had a kind heart.
Yes.
He was a human. At the end of the day, bro, he was a human being.
Yeah.
And that always spoke to me, the way he bared his soul on a public stage over and over again. It just showed determination and strength, power. You know, it was a form of therapy. And like we said, music is a therapy for us all, and it's cathartic. So can you just imagine what it was like for him?
I know. And being able to imagine having that much just pressure, darkness, just compacting you through life in very formative years. And some people can just go in so many other paths and not know how to deal with that. Not only did he find ways to deal with it through creativity, art, but also through like, I'm going to now just love everyone around me. Like Swizz says in that video, like, I'll take your pain and I'll do it. Even in the Drink Champs, that was recent, he's talking on there and he's talking to, I can't remember who it is, but someone's on the phone to him and he's like, mate, I'll take a bullet for you. And I'm like, X, man, you've done so much for so many. And even now you're willing to do that for people. It's just, yeah.
I mean, that stuff just kind of always blew me away. The fact that he never let fame get the best of him in that respect, where he became selfish. You know, fame obviously put a massive weight on him, but he was never selfish. He spent his money on other people. Like when I hear stories about, you know, how when he was in the hood, wherever he was feeding the kids, like buying them pizza and doing toy drives and going to hospitals to see sick kids. And you hear these, you know, there's so many viral stories, about DMX that I love. You know, there's the one that's going around at the moment of the woman on the plane, and he you know, has that conversation with her, and he's just talking to her like a regular person, and because she treats him as a human being, and then he invites her to the show. That to me just is the antithesis of who DMX is. His heart, you know, like all these little stories, you know, people, the media, and I know I'm a part of the media, but I'm talking about the media who do not understand the culture, always shine a light on the negative stuff. But the man had trauma and was troubled. And, you know, I don't want to use those things as an excuse, but they're a part of it.
Yeah.
But they never want to talk about the positive stuff of what he did for people, whether it be through his music and everything we've just talked about, or the acts of kindness and helping people. I think what originally got overlooked, and probably isn't now, is that he moved the needle. Like, he moved the fucking needle in a gargantuan way. You know, this was at a time when rap was dominated by, you know, the shiny suit era of New York with Puffy and Mace and even the Locks at that point, right? And the diamond encrusted sounds of the South with Master P and Baby and Cash Money. And, you know, DMX kicked the doors off of this shit. And it was because he wasn't afraid to be himself. You know, there are so many clones in this business. And once someone really pops, everybody tries to copy them. Every record label wants to sign the next Drake, right? The next Young Thug. Like, everybody wants to sign that person. X was never about that life. He was him, and you either liked it or you didn't. There was no conforming. And not only that, no one ever was able to copy him.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, I guess a part of his legacy is just, he wasn't afraid to be himself, which inspired, you know, it went on, I guess, to inspire this new generation, right?
But Will, man, I mean, that's just been incredible. Like the journey you're taking me on there. We've had so many people talk, and their journeys with X are very personable. That's one thing, you know, incredibly personable.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even get into when I first heard it. Like,
what was that? Where do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I do. It's crazy, right? Because all these artists that mean so much to me. So, you know, we're talking like my favorite artists are Tupac, Prince, Barry White, Michael Jackson, of course, LL Cool J, Eminem. All these artists, I can tell you the first time I ever heard them, and then I can tell you everything about them because I just became a nerd, right?
Yeah.
And with X, like most of us in the UK, it was LL Cool J's 4 3 2 1.
Same.
And I just mentioned about him being one of my favorite, right? So those that know me well, outside of Tupac, LL Cool J is my favorite rapper of all time. He's the GOAT. So I was always constantly glued to everything he did from a very young age. So when I picked up Phenomenon, the album, and got to that track, that was the first time I heard X. Yeah. And bro, those opening bars where he's like, "Stay out the dark, because if I catch you when the sun is down, run it, clown, come off that." I was like, what the fuck? It bro, it was exciting.
Yeah.
It was potent, but it was scary as fuck too. And the funny thing is, that wasn't the beginning of my love affair with him, really. Because it didn't, I mean, I loved it, but when I really like got into him where it was like, yo, I need to be on everything. You know, there was that run of 97 to like the beginning of 98 before he dropped It's Dark and Hell is Hot in like May in 98. He did, I love the verse on Mace's 24 Hours to Live, the Lox' Money, Power, Respect. But when I heard him on Onyx's Shut 'Em Down, it was game the fuck over for me, right? And the moment I heard him say, I bet you this motherfucking double barrel will blast your face. Be on the lookout for a basket case. Yeah. It was the way he said it.
Yeah.
The way I heard it first before I saw it. I could picture how animated he was delivering it, right? I lost my shit. And I'm a hardcore Onyx fan. To me, they are one of the best rap groups ever. And they're seriously overlooked in that conversation. And while Sticky's verse was spectacular too, actually, just how he starts off where he's like, I'm Sticky, I'm the crazy kid. And he just runs off this run. I can't really do it because it's so impeccable. That was spectacular, but X murdered that shit. And then, from there it was Ruff Ryders all day. I supported everything that they dropped. I bought all his albums, of course. I bought all the Ruff Ryder albums, the compilations, the clothes. Bro, I had like Ruff Ryder jeans, denim jackets. And this is the funniest thing, right? I was involved. I was the captain of a five-a-side football team in this tournament at my high school, right?
Right.
And I named the team the Ruff Ryders.
You love that.
And if you speak, one of my friends, me and him have talked about it recently. One of my friends who was on the team was a guy called Jake Buckley. And me and Jake were obsessed, and we were on that team. And like before every game, we played the Ruff Ryders anthem. And I still, to this day, have a printout sheet of the matchups and with the name the Ruff Ryders on it, right? And it's funny, I bring up Jake because there was one other thing that a lot of people forget about kind of that era. You had the albums, you had the Ruff Ryder stuff, and you had the movies. Me and Jake had this shared love and obsession for the live album Def Jam Survival of the Illest tour.
Yes.
And that album has everything on it, right?
Yeah.
Keith Murray is another one of my favorite MCs. And so you've got the Def Squad on that disc, right? On that album. Onyx, who I've already said I love. DMX closes it out. And then you've also got Core Mega is on it. And the Firm were there. Like Foxy Brown was. So I urge anybody that's never listened to it to listen to it, because what you want to talk about live albums, that's the one for me. So that was like, from then the game changed for me, you know? It's crazy. Like, have you been talking to people about their favorite tracks and stuff?
Yeah. We've had many different people with different cuts from his days before he was signed to Def Jam to everything basically. But did you have many that just sort of hit home, maybe even more now, maybe than they did before?
Well, it's funny, like, because I'll never be that person that, like I said, the first time I heard X was in 97 on 4321. For sure. So I was never familiar with the stuff beforehand at that time. I mean, obviously since, I remember when, I'm okay. I think the statute of limitations has gone now. LimeWire, right, and I was downloading all these, like, I was obsessed with like the G Unit run. So, but at that time I was downloading like all the G Unit stuff, but I kept finding all these DMX freestyles. And I remember explicitly hearing the I Shot Ya freestyle, which the lyrics became Get At Me Dog. But on the original, he tells Tupac to suck his dick and not K Solo.
Yeah.
And I always remember I was very conflicted at this point, because I'm like, Tupac is the greatest to ever do this. And, you know, I love you, dear. And this, I got this after It's Dark and Hell is Hot. So already I'm in love with X. And I'm like, X, why'd you have to do this? But then, like, if you go on, I don't think he ever talked about it much. But I know it was the East Coast, West Coast thing. And I think he just felt a type of way. But in one of the early Drink Champs interviews he did, he actually talked about Meeting Part. briefly, I think in LA. And he said that it always struck him that he didn't think that Puck had the right people around him. And he says that if he did, he would probably still be here. So yeah, I dived into all of that stuff. But, you know, asking somebody who is obsessed with DMX what their favorite tracks are is like asking them what their favorite kids are, if I had any, which I don't. But you know, I can run through On It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. Stop Being Greedy was always this gargantuan mammoth anthem for me. That even now, when I hear those bells, when I hear that in a club, people need to move the fuck out of the way because I'm about to punch somebody. Not on purpose, but you know.
It's the energy.
And then I Can Feel It. I Gotta Be Real. Quick fact. I was first introduced to Phil Collins because of that song.
Oh, no way. Wow.
Because you have to bear in mind, I was 15 at this point.
Of course.
But on that album, Let Me Fly was my favorite. You know, he's talking so much real shit on that song. It torched my soul every time. And it features one of my favorite X lines ever as well, right? Is when he says, what does he say? He says, I sold my soul to the devil and the price was cheap. And it's cold on this level because it's twice as deep. I can't tell you exactly why it resonated with me. Honestly, I do not have an answer for you, but it's by far one of the lines that I spit the most and that I've used the most. I tell you what, We Right Here on the Great Depression.
Love that track.
And like, listen, Westwood used to rinse the hell out of that record. And how it starts with the crowd, and it's that, you know, that thing that Pharrell does on his beats at the beginning. He has this 3-prong kind of style where it's like ding, ding, ding. Listen to the beginning of We Right Here and how the crowd starts. It goes,
yes, it does. It does.
Bring it. We right here.
Yeah.
So I used to bang the shit out of that. Bring Your Whole Crew, which has another one of my favorite lines, which you saw me tweet this week, where it's like, now if your heart was as big as your mouth, you'd be real.
Boom.
I love that line.
Boom. Yeah, I love that.
You know, and then if you're going to talk about songs that make you feel something, like I say, because of what his music does to me, you know, there's Angel with Regina Bell. I've always loved that record.
Yeah.
I always really liked Ayo Kato as well.
Yeah. In the video as well, when it comes in
just
through.
I just love hearing him talk about people. So like I Miss You as well, the record with Faith Evans where he's talking about his grandma.
That is serious.
I love Rain. And then of course, Lord Give Me a Sign. I mean, there's so many of those types of records.
Yes.
And then, you know, there's so many I can mention. I know I don't want to, I'm conscious of going on and on and on, but
no.
But there's a bunch of collaborations too. I already mentioned Shut 'Em Down.
Yes.
I love Grand Finale on the Belly soundtrack.
Unreal. And the video.
With Meth and Jar.
Nas.
Sorry, Nas. Go to Sleep on Cradle to the Grave.
Oh, God. Is that with M?
Hearing Eminem with DMX, and I think it's Obi Trice as well.
Yes, yeah.
And then one of my favorite Nas albums, it might actually be my favorite, is I Am. And then you've got the track Life Is What You Make It with DMX.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, good shout.
And of course, you cannot not mention It's Murder on Veni Veni Vecchi Ja Rule. Like him and Jay-Z, that's a fucking classic.
Yeah, that is a banger.
The fact that the Murder Inc. group never materialized hurts me.
That cover. Do you remember the cover?
The XXL cover where they're holding the baseball bat and the chains.
Oh, man.
I have that cover still. Like,
damn.
That album should have came. Like, if someone asked me to play them a record that best demonstrates the perfect balance of like ferocious delivery, superior lyricism, and this flawless, dirty production, It's Murder is that track.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know a lot of people like to kind of like bag on Ja Rule as time has gone on. Veni Veni Vecchi is a classic, and I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Yeah. And that track is the spearhead. It's the anchor, right?
Yeah.
And then just quickly, one last song that always gets overlooked. Always.
Okay.
There's a track called Demons. And it's D3MONS.
Right.
And it's a Machine Gun Kelly record.
Right.
Now, everybody knows the DMX and Machine Gun Kelly record they did for DMX's album. But MGK's first album, Lace Up, he has a record on it called Demons with DMX, right?
Okay.
Listen to that song and how haunting it is. Like, he takes it back to his It's Dark and Hell is Hot days on that record. And people don't talk about that song enough. So, yeah, listen to Demons.
Okay.
But the list could go on forever, bro.
Man, I tell you what, this whole thing's just been fast. I'm sorry I haven't said anything, but I've just been beguiled by like everything you're saying.
Bro, I'm sorry. Sometimes I think, like I said, it's been a tough few days.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I felt like I needed to talk about it. And it's just good to be able to talk about it on a platform like this with people that know their shit.
Man, Will, thank you again. I really appreciate all the love, all the insight, all the passion, and just everything. And that's what we're here for, man. And people go out there, check out Will's writing. You've been out there, Enemy. What was it? Enemy, Guardian. What else? You've been dropping stuff everywhere.
So I did the two. I did the two DMX tributes for Enemy and the Independent.
Yeah.
I'm also at Red Bulletin, the Red Bulletin magazine. I do write for Classic Pop. I write for the Metro. I write for LL Cool J's Rock the Bells in America.
Yeah.
So I'm all over the place, and and if you're on Clubhouse, I do a lot of dope rooms on Clubhouse.
You do.
And I'm about to start like a big launch into some more platform or content on new platforms. So
Wicked.
Check it out.
Yes, man. Go check out Will. Go on.
And visit my website, illwill.co.uk, and all my socials. Official Ill Will on Twitter and Instagram. And please just shoot me messages. Like, this is the thing, this conversation we're having here, I want to have that with more people. Like, send me DMs and let's just talk about this. Let's talk about X. Let's celebrate his life. Like, please do.
Absolutely, man. Love that. Beautiful. Well, Will,
Thank
man,
you.
until the next time, I'm sure you'll be on the pod again. We've got to get you on. That's it. X, man. X. Timeless. Bro, peace, man. Peace.
Appreciate you.
So, as it's a DMX tribute, he's integral to this podcast in lots of different ways. And we had to hit up the Crate 808 crew, James Midwinter, Raymond Ridge, just to hear their stories and relive some of our favourite DMX tracks, memories, just the myths of the man, and put them all together for you guys. And yeah, just bring that home for you. So yeah, enjoy. Here we go. Lads, wow. Well, we meet again for all the listeners and viewers. This is Raymond Ridge. This is James Midwinter.
What's happening?
The usual Crate 08 crew. It's sad to have to meet up like this, man, and it be about Darkman X, Earl Simmons, DMX, RIP, man. How are we all feeling now we've heard the news? A week in hospital, long time, wasn't it? And then
yeah, it was a really strange one, wasn't it? Like, just kind of knowing it was over, but wasn't. It was odd, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely
strange because as well, just after the verses, like, it's been such an optimistic time, hasn't it? Because he was right there and he was in banter, and it was just I don't know. Yeah, it was a shock, really.
Yeah,
it was a shock. It wouldn't have been a shock 10 years ago, I don't think. I think 10 years ago we'd have been like, fuck, that's just so sad. But he was on a spiral, and it's like, it's so annoying and so awful that it was like, fuck, he was almost on the verge with new tracks, the new Locks track. He's got a film coming out about a serial killer. It was like, yeah, I'm kind of here. Of course DMX has got a film coming out about a serial killer. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
new Def Jam album as well, like working with Steve Rifkind again. Like,
Yeah, I know. It was going to be, well, I'm sure that'll still drop. But lads, I mean, we've had quite a few guests on and we've all like talked about X. And I thought for us, what we should do is bring just some of our favourite memories, some of our favourite stories, but more than anything, some of our favourite tracks or albums, and maybe just go through why we loved him so much. So I was thinking if we listed a few tracks that we love, and just kind of tell us why. Yeah. So if you guys are down,
I mean, there is that. I think we should get to that. I think it'd be remiss not to mention the fact that like DMX is like where this podcast started, really.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
Just the whole like that moment. So I remember, I don't want to talk too much about, hey, when we were in uni, blah 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 blah. But you know, when you start at uni, yeah, but you will. It was 99. So you know. It's dark and hell is
God,
hot
is this
and
a
fresh,
memory?
fresh.
Yeah, this is you two. It's got nothing to do with me. I wasn't there.
All right, well, yeah, just buff out for a minute. Why don't you just go and massage your background for a little while, and then. Basically, I mean, I'll get straight to the point. Long story short, you start uni and you're meeting people, and you're like, these are just they're only going to be acquaintances, and then someone mentions, there was a guy in my halls that was playing DMX, I think, and I remember thinking like, oh shit, I gotta find this guy, and I was at the student bar where I saw Cam was speaking to other people, and I just must have been in the background going like, DMX, just Ruff Ryders anthem.
I'll always remember those immortal words, bro. He came up, I heard you're into DMX and Ruff Ryders, and no one had ever said that sentence to me before, mate. And it was like, as we all know very well, listening to this podcast, I lived in a village, and there was no one who listened to DMX apart from people I got him onto, you know what I mean? And it was like, well, actually, at that time, I don't even think you need to get him onto, because at 99, X was the man. He was top of the fucking, king of the hill, bro. So, Jambo, tell us your first memories of X. What was the X's memories? What was the first thing you remember?
I believe it was probably listening to the seminal Posse cut 24 Hours to Live, which I don't think we've discussed enough on this podcast.
We have discussed it in an episode on Mace.
It's a brilliant, off an absolute classic hip-hop album that should be in Crate 808. Yeah, Mace's album. He was on that. And I remember thinking, that was fucking great. And I was saying to you the other day, I literally bought the Lox's first album, not a very good album, just because it had a DMX. I saw on the back it had a DMX verse on Money, Power, Respect, which is a fucking banging tune.
Yeah,
so,
and the video where he's in like the window, when he's like standing out the window and he's just rapping like a motherfucker. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
love Money, Power,
so
Respect.
yeah, I'm quite excited to celebrate the great man's life. I've got my black hoodie on. I got my Timberlands on. I got my grimy Carhartt jeans. I've got the Kool-Aid on my lips. Oh. No, he doesn't like that, does he?
Doesn't like Kool-Aid on your lips.
I've not got that
he
on.
Doesn't like.
But yeah, he
you
was.
got your ski mask?
No, I don't have the ski mask, but I will later be getting topless in a prison yard with about 60 massive bricked up dudes. Yeah,
so big. Some of them. I've been watching a lot of their videos this week, and then those blokes are massive.
Why are you all topless, guys? Why?
Don't matter. It's hot, innit? It's hot, and I've got massive arms.
Yeah.
I've got arms bigger than my body. Yeah. It's amazing.
But yeah, I was. I loved DMX. He was probably. I think I've seen a few people saying this. He was kind of like the first artist that I felt like I discovered and by myself, rather, because at that age people had shown me like Wu-Tang and stuff like that, but this is the first artist I was like, oh shit, this guy's new on the scene and stuff. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, and the
which
thing
is remarkable because he wasn't new. And that's the thing. For us,
it's weird, isn't it?
It was really weird. Like, it took him so long to get there, but when he got there, bang, it was just like, wow.
And the thing is, I was just going to say, you can see his influence in so much of who we are, on this podcast today as well. Like the whole, a big part of a lot of his tracks was that whole having a conversation with himself, like the whole having a conversation with. That's Cam. That's Cam on the podcast. That's Cam all fucking day long. That's all fucking day long. And then
it is.
And then with Jambo as well. There's DMX's third album, which is and then there was X, which is basically every relationship he's ever had. So.
Oh fucking hell! That was not even a subliminal. It was straight vicious, a vicious diss.
I think that's it. Right. I think you won the podcast. I think that's the best diss that's ever been dropped on this podcast. Fucking hell! Wow.
Ray, Jesus, man. And then to be fair,
I'd say with me it would be just growling constantly while you're both talking shit. That's basically what the podcast is, isn't it? Me getting fucking angry about you talking.
One of the most used things Ray's ever said to me generally in life is, what the deal is, never forget what real is. And I remember and it was like, Jesus. And mine's always, I think I've always used the Method Man, two tears in a bucket, fuck it. Like, it's just, it becomes part of your vernacular, doesn't it?
And as well,
the weird thing,
it would be, I just remiss, I don't want to keep butting in, but there's some things that we got to acknowledge first as well. Like, from one of our first debates was It's Dark and Hell is
X.
Hot. I brought that album. And they went up against Cuban Links and All Eyes on Me. And DMX won that debate as well. So, I mean, that just shows where Crate 808 has stood with DMX from day one. So
it's true. I got absolutely ripped for that, for making that judgment call. Ray won that one. But that go back, check them episodes out. That episode was dope. And just going into Dark and Hell is Hot, man, that album. I mean, if we're going to go into like some of our favourite tracks and albums, let me just kick off.
Before you kick off, can I just ask a question?
On, yeah.
Ray's just pointed to his little sign in the background.
That pitiful, isn't it?
When you bought that frame, did you buy the frame first and then the DMX thing, or was it the other way around? Because like, if it was the other way around and you bought that frame for that, that's ridiculous.
I think it can't.
It's like a $3 frame.
Let him rest in peace, Ray. Let him rest in peace.
There's no square frames anywhere. They're all A4. Okay, what do you want me to do? Stretch the image. Look, this is obviously just put up for the podcast.
For the podcast listeners, to go to YouTube and check out Ray's attempt, because it isn't great. But what Jambo's doing is great.
I feel like I'm going to have to turn this off because it's a
just
bit
put another
weird.
image up. Also, I love that. Jonathan Mannion, big up, and obviously on the hoodie as well. His, like, one of the things we talked about with a few other guests is how photogenic DMX was and how much he just, in image alone, you get so much from him, and that was so many iconic images from X. But because I was going to talk about like how we all got into X, but also his songs, and this marries up kind of perfectly for me. And one of my favourite songs for X is the intro to.
That's literally what I got written here. Yeah.
Yeah, to Dark and Hell is Hot. And I know people might like, he has got so many he got more anthems than the Olympics. Remember that flyer at Stratford Rex? And it's like more anthems than the Olympics. And he has. He's got introspective tracks, he's got all that. But when you talk about album openers and personal attachment to them, go on, DM. I love that, Jambo.
It's a brilliant picture, isn't it? But I'm kind of being DMX. Look at that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Sorry,
but I remember
my
my first time seeing X was the 4321 video, and I had my eyes peeled for meth and red and LL and Cannabis, because Cannabis, remember, he was like the fucking one. He was like the Neo, wasn't he? He was going to be the best thing ever. And then seeing this guy with pit bulls and ski masks and just coming out of nowhere, for some reason at that time, I don't know what it was, but I was beguiled by that because I didn't know who he was. And then Westwood, I remember listening, taping Westwood, having my headphones on in my dark room on my own, and then hearing, I heard they're locking down the industry on some shit, like some power shit. And I was like, who is this? And then it was just dong, that whole thing. And that Westwood tape I rinsed on that show. He played intro, Stop Being Greedy, and Ruff Ryders Anthem. And I was just like, okay, this is my favourite rapper now.
Game over.
My favourite rapper now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing with intro as well. It's the first, like, it is the perfect intro, not to just the album, but to DMX. Like, if you hadn't heard of DMX before this sad occasion, you should start with intro, because it does what it says on the tin. You know, the whole the echoing church bells and the strings and that whole kind of aesthetic, and howling at the moon from the roof. But in that as well, couple of his lines are, "But this girl gave me head for free because they see who I'ma be in by 2003." By 2003, he'd had 5 #1 albums.
It was the end of his career as well. That was it.
well, yeah. I mean, you could say that, but that is mad. And do you know what? And I've said this before on the other parts of this episode, but I'm gonna have to bring it with you boys as well. There was something about, like, I wasn't thinking about Pac, I wasn't thinking about Biggie, but there was something about the intro, and I revisited it this week again. And hearing that bit where no one's rapping, and it's just that little skits from the song from a film where he's like, I don't give a fuck, that whole bit in the back, it brought that same essence of Tupac, and that forebodingness was everywhere. You know, that kind of death is all over his albums, and just trauma is just splashed all over his character and everything, in interviews to videos to everything. Even if you're doing a smooth track, the way he's delivering lines are still like tinged with sadness at times. And I think and I'm with you, Ray. I think intro is right up there. Jambo, what have you got, mate, for like songs that you loving?
Well, what I mean, like, I just think that first album, like, Fucking with D on that, always hits really hard. It's like a bit of an underrated one in terms of you wouldn't probably put it in like top 5, top 6 songs or whatever to think about. But to me, like, it just bangs. I love the production on that whole album. But like, what's on the second album, Bring Your Whole Crew? I always remember when I was in like a full DMX mode, and then that album came out, and like, that's just one of the hardest songs ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
I don't want to fight just you. I love the way he says, I love when it's like, I love it when you bring...
It's preferable for you to bring a whole crew.
Bring them all, because it's just bigger piece of cake for me to chew a hole through.
They're so fucking good.
It's so hard. And who else at that time was dropping multiple albums in a year? Like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that being a thing. You know, they may have done before that, but I don't remember in my vicinity, like, apart from Pac, obviously Pac with Machiavelli and Pac, but you have to think he died, so were they rushing it out or whatever? But DMX doing that and both going to #1 was just fucking crazy, man.
The fucking great thing about DMX is that, like, he never really got into rapping about, like, because obviously, I mean, have you seen the Ruff Ryders documentary where they're like, all he wanted was some candy and he got given the candy factory, basically. He got shit in the matter of like months, went to being one of the biggest artists in the world. Never went into a shiny suit moment. Never, I've got all this shit. Not on the music anyway. Obviously, he like bought a lot of cars and stuff like that, but never really talked about that. It was more always talking about like his sadness, his pain, like his background, killing people. But like he never like switched up. I mean, there's not even his like more commercial singles off of those albums
they weren't like that. Even when you're listening to X Is Gonna Give It To You or Party Up or What's My Name, listen to What's My Name and think that those lyrics shouldn't be on a #1 hit that kids are listening to. Like, the lyrics are ridiculous. Like, he's just like, and also I thought it was so underrated at the time, and I'd never heard anyone threaten to do stuff to your rib cage. I remember he loved saying stuff like, I'm gonna put one up in your rib cage, and you were like, oh, that's a good way of putting stuff in it, like put it in the rib cage and things. He was so unique, and I think we can't put down like his language use. His language use was crazy, and you know, like, I know we've got more to go into. So, Ray, I did want to hear more from your other. I know you got intro, but what else have you got, mate? Like, tracks wise, you're loving.
So, look, I don't want to cheapen this with a cheap and tacky gimmick, but if aliens came to planet Earth and we had to put together a playlist of 100 tracks to explain to them what hip hop was, like, intro is on that, and obviously the Ruff Ryders anthem is, and then. Yeah, the other one for me is the convo. Just there's the passion. The passion is just unmatched, and just the whole. But there's so much content in it as well. And then his flow as well. It's unlike anyone else that kind of like staccato, offbeat, but in rhythm, different voices. It's just and
it was you who brought me, and it was you, and it was you. The way he's doing that, and the way he ends that track, and he just goes, "Shine your light on me," and it's like,
and but how it drops as well, because it drops after the prayer, and so the prayer ends, and then it's just got that, just the way the beat comes in. It's it's an incredible.
You know what's fascinating to me about X? You know what's fascinating to me about him is his unwavering faith. Like, I can't even imagine the stuff he went through, and listening to all the stories about him, like being beaten up by his mum, being hit by a truck, like sleeping in bins and having his jaws wired and all this stuff. Imagine living that life as a kid, right? And then you just being so adamant, the Lord has made this for me to go on and do stuff. And it's like, I find it really kind of like, it's just touching, but it's also kind of like really amazing how he just unwavering, and prayers on every album, just prayers all the time, and pretty crazy.
I've heard people get pretty into this whole Christianity thing, don't they? It's been around a while, and I always wondered why. But that's.
But I think what's weird for me is that like I'd hear unwavering faith in my family, of course, but in hip hop. To marry, look at the album covers alone, to marry blood and flesh and all this and satanicness to the Lord, it kind of obviously works because they're, two sides of the same coin. But also, I've not heard that in hip hop, where if you're being preachy and talking about the Lord, I'm probably going to switch this off. Not with X. You're just going to rewind it. And you're
I do.
Yeah.
I don't like all the prayers. I don't like them. Never like them. Never like them.
Just a massive atheist. That's what it is.
It's just not it's never been my jam, the prayers and stuff like that. Like,
true,
same.
Yeah.
And
but
as
in,
well,
in his lines anyway.
With the prayer on It's Dark and Hell is Hot, that you can't. I listen to it sometimes for the transition to the combo when the beat kicks in, because the prayer is like a long intro to the combo.
Yeah,
but yeah, the kind of
I feel you.
I don't know. But I guess for the most part, I'm skipping most of the skits. I mean, that's my pattern with all fucking hip hop anyway. Really.
Yeah,
but,
I know. True.
Yeah.
You little knucklehead motherfucker.
Yeah, you need to go to the mosque.
You need to go. You need to go to. It's like he forgot his line. Like the boy. Oh fuck! I'm at church. Oh,
but shit. That's also another thing. Like DMX did have love for like. It wasn't like obviously he's a Christian, but also it was like they had Islamic stuff. All that. Yeah. It was all there. But one of my other tracks that I love, and I feel like, and man, big up Thomas Hobbs because he absolutely nailed the same thing I felt. But Stop Being Greedy.
Yeah, that's a fucking great tune.
That. And I know hyperbole, and when someone passes and it's like, oh, you do big things up. But I do think it gives you perspective and a bit more of a different prism to look at the impact of what someone did. I remember at that time we were all backpackers, and Stop Being Greedy was our fucking moment. That was our punk moment. When all this commercial shit was going on, he was our Sex Pistols. He was our like, fuck you, stop being greedy, give to the needy. And he did it forever. That was him always. And I remember that track for me was just one of the moments where I was like, shit, like you're changing the landscape of rap and just being so explicit. It wasn't even like, he wasn't even doing it like whatever. He was just like, yeah, it's you motherfuckers need to stop and give it back to where this culture and music come from. And I think Stop Being Greedy is exactly
it's
that.
It's a bit like his Gimme the Loot, isn't it? It's kind of like his Gimme the Loot moment.
Give me the loot.
Using the different voices and stuff like that. It's got similar-ish kind of. I like ribs is touching. It's a good way of saying you're hungry.
Yeah. See what I mean with language.
I think for me the tracks like the ones that have come. Are we saying top fives? We're doing top fives, aren't we? Top five tracks?
It's kind of a top five, I suppose, but yeah,
well,
they always change, don't they?
The top five for me is, we've already said intro and the convo, but the other three are the more party tracks, because the thing that I found great about DMX is that while he's really serious and gruff and dark and, church bells ringing, all that kind of stuff, like when you juxtapose that, his kind of, it's not anger, is it? But it's kind of controlled and articulate anger and pain. Yeah. But then you hear It's All Good. And it's just about just having sex with women. That's all it is. Just like that whole concept of him. It's not in one of my top five. But that track that What These Bitches Want with Cisco, and all he's doing is just listing girls' names. That's it.
I know. Who
Sarah,
does that on a number one hit?
It's just like on and
about
on.
three Kims. About three Kims. Like, come on, man. I know.
Just making sure, and everyone knows it as well. It's a meme, isn't it? It's, everyone knows that track.
Yeah. Everyone knows it.
It's exactly. Good. It was good practice though, because later on he had to do that for all his kids.
Oh, mate.
There's nothing wrong with having loads of kids. I'm just saying, memorizing all those fucking names is difficult.
17 names is a lot.
Yeah,
17
that's
names
a lot.
Is a lot. I know. I was actually going to say there about you're saying there about the pain in what he does, but yet he also does those other tracks. I've been finding it really weird in the last few years, especially, but like, when someone has come from so much trauma, pain, and just violence, and yet we're in clubs dancing to it. And it's just a really weird dichotomy of hip hop, but it's really crystallized with X, because even in them banging tracks, he's talking about his pain at times, and you're like, that's so mad that it translates from you trying to just convey stuff you've gone through, and there's people in bedrooms and everywhere feeling it and they can't articulate themselves, and yet we're also in clubs and we're like fucking getting down to it, and it's like just a weird place to be, and your emotions are everywhere, and it's just very
it doesn't
strange,
really happen anymore.
strange.
I mean, I don't know whether it does actually, because I haven't been clubbing in fucking years, but I remember when we were going out to clubs, like they used to play like DMX and everyone would go like mental on the dance floor, but then that got phased out because there was too much trouble. I wonder whether people,
I remember that in London.
There's not even really artists like DMX anymore, but I wonder if he does get played in clubs still, like
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if they do. I don't know if they do, but
hip hop music doesn't have drums in it anymore, so there's no beats, there's nothing to jump around to.
No one's playing Griselda
just
in clubs,
jazz
mate.
club style, just sitting down on tables, just going,
like
this is interesting. Yeah. It's like a drummer walks in, like, no, we don't need you anymore. Cheers, Al, nice one. All right, carry on.
well, okay, fair enough. Jambo, did you have another track? I know Ray just did one. Have you got another
well,
track?
it's one that, like, it's an obvious one, but one that when I was younger, I didn't really, everyone seemed to really love it, but I wasn't as into it. But now as I've got older, like Slippin'. As I've got older, that's meant more, especially with him dying recently, like it means more now than it did when I was young, and all I wanted to do was hear like Get At Me Dog and stuff like that. I didn't want to hear the slower stuff, but there's a reason why that was huge over here and everywhere, really. It's like such a beautiful sort of
open wound.
Yeah, exactly.
That track is an open wound.
A look at his life, really honest. Yeah, exactly.
He's always been honest. And the fact that when he says on that track, man, because Slippin' is in my 5 as well. Slippin' is up there for me. Because I feel, even at the time, the video, everything about it, we were living together, Ray, when that came out, I think. I remember seeing it on telly loads. And it was like, that line always stuck with me, where I was like, damn, was it my fault, something I did to make a father leave his first kid at 7 doing my first bid?
Yeah.
I mean, what other really, really popular, I don't know if it went number 1, but it was a very popular track in hip hop, is that open and vulnerable? Like, just that vulnerable.
Well,
honest,
we were talking about the Ghostface, like when we're talking, oh no, we've not even, that's not come out yet, but in terms
of... It's coming.
But All That I Got Is You. That we came up with a category, it was like, not ballads, but like hip hop. Slippin' is in there in that respect of All I Got Is You is just... I don't know what you'd call it. It's not a ballad, is it? Because ballad's a love song.
It's not, but it's one of the most
blues, like a blues song almost.
Yes, bluesy. It definitely has. I mean, come on, everything.
Let's not forget. I Can Feel It as well.
Go on.
It was on the first
I Can
album.
Feel It.
I Can Feel It, and he sampled Phil as well. I mean, come on, and he pulled it off.
Phil gave him clearance. Phil gave him clearance.
Wicked. Because
Phil doesn't.
That's the thing as
well.
Like,
shit.
It's. You might hear it at first and be like, oh, come on, it's an obvious sample. But he fucking owns it as well. It's
absolutely. And it is, that's the thing, isn't it? It's so obvious. I remember at the time when it came on, I was like, oh, man, please don't. And then it was like, oh, no, please do. This is actually amazing. And from all accounts I've read, Phil Collins does not clear shit. And apparently, like, he talked to X, he talked to the guys at Ruff Ryders, and he was like, and when he heard X on it, he was like, oh, I love this. So, man, if Big Phil Collins is saying yes, you know I'm a big Phil Collins fan, mate, so I'm in. But I had another one. I mean, Slippin's up there as well, obviously. But I had, and I think it might be one of my favourite extracts generally anyway, is Look Through My Eyes. I know we're really going to his first few albums here, but I think they're so monumental. But Look Through My Eyes, if you listen to that track, it's a perfect introspective DMX track. It's got everything about his life that is so crazy, especially the way he ends it. Feel the pain, feel the joy of a man who was never a boy, for real. And you're just like,
that's brilliant.
Fucking incredible. And the way he just says, not feel me, y'all. You know that bit where they break the biggest, he'll do a rap and then they go, feel me, y'all. And then he'll go straight to the next verse or the next bit. Everything about it, they break it up, the momentum of it, everything. And lines like, then know why I do dirt in the street if you walk in my shoes and hurt your feet and stuff like that. And that's actually never forget the real is where that's the line it comes from, isn't it? But yeah, no.
Yeah,
I think,
just every track on that album particularly, like it's just content filled, and that's. I don't want to compare it to hip hop today, but it's just there's so much in every track, and it's just the honesty, the pain, the expression of all that is just. But again,
what?
My next two tracks. I don't want to move on for that. And she weren't going to say something about that. Basically,
I was going to say about that. Like when we did the "It's Dark and Hell Is Hot" episode, like I remember you saying about how. Ends Done Starting Something, you love that song, and I've never been into that song, and then after that I've like gone back and listened to it and I'm like, actually this is a banger. Like I was just never into it when I was younger for some reason, but you are right.
And just the thing is, especially, I mean, I don't want to repeat all the stuff I said on that episode, but because DMX is the last verse on that track, and he closes the album with his verse, and that is Like if we were talking about greatest verses of DMX's greatest verses, it's that on the end of that, like after Mason the Locks, and he's just a ridiculous verse.
Yeah,
you can't read out too much of it because there's too many N-words in it, and it's not appropriate, is it? But
I know it would be a bit weird if we're doing top fives and we don't do Ruff Ryders Anthem though, because it's so obvious.
It's obvious. It's just it's like of course that. Now let's talk about everything else. Yeah,
there's certain tracks that change the climate in a room. They change the weather system, motherfucker. Like you are in a room, whatever room you're in, if that comes on, we've talked about it a million times, like in clubs and that. But even if it's not in a club, if I'm driving and it's a 30 miles an hour limit and Ruff Ryders Anthem came on, I'm probably going to just put my foot down a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just changes everything. It's like everything about it. And the fact he did it in 15 minutes, man. He just wrote that. I didn't even like it. What's he say about that GQ video? Is that some ABC shit?
Wasn't he like he had lost a bet that because he didn't want to do the track, so they were D and Y were trying to get him on the track, and he did I played a game of cards or something with D, lost, and then they were like, right, that was the bet, you got to do the track now. So he wrote it really quickly because he was like, oh fuck it, there you go.
Damn. The myth of the man is crazy.
What's interesting though is that for me this track I didn't realise, but Swizz Beatz was in school in Atlanta, when the Ruff Ryders was coming up. So this is almost an introduction to that Deep South hip hop sound, because it was he liked marching bands and stuff like that, and that's what a lot of Deep South hip hop is sort of based around, the sort of rhythms and stuff. So this is almost, and then obviously Swizz brought that to a lot of DMX's stuff, and then obviously in the 2000s. The South took over, so this is almost like a precursor to that sound.
That
raucous kind of sound, which I find is pretty interesting.
See how many levels you can talk about X though. You can talk about X on that level and his technical ability, like how he rhymes in pockets of tracks, but you can also talk about the forged friendships. Do you know what I mean? Of in them fires of a mosh pit, there were friendships were forged for life, bro. Like those mosh pits, I remember at that time, if someone gets down with you and the Ruff Ryders is going on, bows are being thrown, and you're throwing each other around, you're kind of that guy's friend now, forever. All the girls, I remember girls getting involved. They'd be like, fucking hell, let's go. And I just think there's a special magic to tracks that can do what you just said, Jumbo, and yet also do that other thing. And it's very rare, and I don't think it happens all the time. And I think there's only a certain few tracks in that same pantheon, to be fair, and Ruff Ryders is right in there.
Says, Woe, Black Rob. Yeah,
Shook
few,
Ones. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, mate, big up Black Rob, man. Much love to Black Rob, because, seeing him say about DMX and in hospital, man, much love. But is there any other tracks you guys have got?
Yeah, so I got two others. I mean, they're party tracks as well. And again, I'm just going with that. I just like that combination of his roughness with that kind of upbeat tunes, but upbeat. We Right Here and Get It on the Floor. That's that the beat to get it on the floor. Get it on the floor. Get it on the floor.
I love Get It on the Floor.
So sick.
It's one of my favourite Swizz beats.
Totally.
It's one of my favourite.
It's just one of those ones that comes on. I'm like, oh shit.
Get it on the floor.
Yeah, even if I'm just doing the washing up, you can't not move to it. You can't not move to it.
I'm going to do a Ray favourite here. Yesterday I was going for a walk. I walked into my cul-de-sac. Get It on the Floor came on. I started walking differently. Yeah. I'm 40 years old in Derby, and Get It on the Floor is coming on. And you know what else? Exactly. And you know what else about DMX? And I think by the time Get It on the Floor, people might have been like, he was around, he was so big and he was just so everywhere. But let's just remember that his second verse alone, he was recalling some of his best rhyming on Get It on the Floor. Like when he's like, I can't even rhyme it, but the way he starts the flow on his second verse about being at the crossroads and not sure which way to go.
Yeah,
the way he rhymes that
flow kind of
on
up,
beat. It's so what's the word you always use? It's so satisfying.
Yeah,
it's so satisfying.
Yeah,
So I special shout out to Get It on the Flow. And you know what? Special shout out to Trina Mo as well. If we can do special shout outs.
Have you worked out what Trina Mo is about? What is Trina Mo?
I don't know, but big up Joel, because Joel, one of my boys, hit me up. And again, the power of DMX. I've not talked to Joel in almost a year, and it's like he called me up because DMX passed away. It's another one of them friendships that have been forged through his music. It's like, we talked about Trina Mo, and I was like, oh yeah, shit, I forgot about that track. So I don't even know what it's about, mate. I can't even actually remember, but I do remember him going, nah. I'm like, he's being so childish, yet I kind of love it. It's weird, isn't it? You kind of let him go.
I looked it up, and it said that it was his friend. just got a friend who did a dance, and her name was Trina Moe.
Brilliant. But isn't that brilliant? He would do Mickey and like Pac-Man and all these little bits that were just what is this about?
Crime Story. I play like a bitch. That whole little bit. I play like a bitch, and he goes, "Oh no! Oh, I hope you catch him. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, thank God that was over." You know what I mean? Just because that's quite a serious story. And then he pretends to be a girl in the middle of a track. All right, fine.
His imagination was on another level, and you can't help but think where that came from, where that was formed, and a lot of that in his own words has been, you know, when my mum was locking me in the room for the summer, or when I was in solitary, she didn't mind. I remember him saying he went to jail. That was it. What Swizz said in that amazing video. He went to jail to get away from the pain. Imagine that. Imagine living a life where you go to jail and then you see him joking about it on the Top 5 cameo with Chris Rock, and he's like, I'm living this motherfucker. And you're like, wow, like it's crazy how much. Yeah, his life was just
quite a good actor, by the way.
Yeah, I thought he brought something to it. Definitely, I'm not sure if he's Pat levels. I thought Pat was kind of trained.
What are you doing,
Ray? What are you doing?
The shine. It's literally been grey skies all day, and then the fucking sun's come out now. It's a greenhouse. There's a glass there. I'm sweating.
He's putting like a Nelly Band-Aid over the top of his camera.
Hey, I tell you what, that when you talk about the children of X and their legacy is fucking real, man. Like, obviously everyone talks about Ja Rule, but I remember him on a track going, I ain't Ja Rule at the end. Like, that Ja Rule was in there, and now you got Kendrick says.
Do you pronounce Ja Rule, Ja Rule?
No, Ja Rule.
You keep saying Ja Rule.
It is Ja. It is Ja, isn't it?
You know me and
Ja.
You know me. It's Ja Rule.
Yes, Rule. In German.
Ja Rule.
Did you hear the Ja Rule story that he had on Drink Champs? The one where he was saying that they got pulled over on the freeway and they had to leave their car because it was a rental and they weren't allowed to be in it. And it was him, Ja Rule, Memphis Bleak, and someone else, and they were all walking down the freeway. And they got picked up by a car like with girls in it. And they all got into this car, and they were driving along, and X was in the front with one of the girls, and she was like, I love your music. Have you heard this fucking guy who just is trying to sound like you? And X was like, he's back there. And he said he turned around and he said he saw. The thing that made me laugh was like, in that moment, I saw Jar's face and he like aged 10 years. And he was like, there it was. It was real. He'd heard it from other people, but this was like totally like non-partisan. He'd heard it like straight from the horse's mouth that he was ripping.
That is
DMX
fantastic.
Off. Yeah.
But this talks about the myth of the man. The man was like a walking, like, even when people might have been clowning on him online and stuff like that, even then, we talked about Shay Serrano doing like normal things DMX does. Just him doing normal things was amazing. And we've seen him at Albanian weddings now, people.
That was ridiculous.
Like, we've seen him at Albanian weddings. We've seen him like, I remember we talked about this on WhatsApp, but let's bring it. Sum 41. He was in a cameo on the Sum 41 video. What the fuck?
And it's a really short cameo. It's just him driving through on a quad through a house.
Yeah. And in that making of that you shared, Jabbo, is great because he's meeting all the band and they're all like little boys, aren't they?
He was really nice with them as well. He was very kind with them.
But you hear he was nice. Mate, the woman he travelled with, they became friends. Like, you know, he had that. And I can't help but think, for all the trials and tribulations and drug taking and points where you were like, wow, is he going to die? Like, he's so skinny at one point. And there were all these moments. For all that, you can't help but think maybe he did. Maybe he was that guy who was just showing love to everyone except like himself at times. Yeah. It's like crazy.
Do you know what's really angered me in the last week? And like, I know that usually like I'm quite like the PC guy, always bringing up the like, oh, you shouldn't have said that in your lyrics and stuff like that. And all they did this. Like, what's annoyed me and why I'm not going to talk about that stuff this week is because like last week, like a bloke died who didn't look after his kids, was sexist, was racist, abused animals, like who married his own cousin, and then was plastered all over the news. Everything had to stop right there and then. And like, we all had to sort of like think about how good a bloke he was when he wasn't really a good bloke.
No, exactly.
And DMX died and didn't get like, and basically you see the son and stuff like that going, did DMX abuse animals and stuff like that? Which, by the way,
I think
I've looked into, and it is debatable because it was in Arizona and Joe Arpaio was the arresting officer on that, who's a fucking cunt. So all around, like, it just pisses me off that someone who brought so much light and joy to people's lives and came from nothing is being celebrated like less by the media in this country and in America than like Prince Philip, who's born into like privilege and did barely anything to make anyone's life any better. So
if anything,
but
put things back.
But at the same time, I'm all right with it. Like, it's fine. It's not for them.
Yeah,
like all those people that are doing that and celebrating.
No, but they're literally pulling him down. They're literally the week he died.
No, but mate, you're forgetting he's black, mate. That's what the problem is. He's black.
But also, but to who? Who's listening to that? No one's listening, reading that and thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe there are some people thinking it's true. But also, it's just, I mean, it doesn't matter. The people that matter are going to celebrate it for. No,
of course, but like the system is fucking bullshit. Like,
totally. It's frustrating. It is frustrating, especially when you're seeing the memes, mate. Especially when people are putting them in the clouds in the memes. Yeah. Don't stop doing it.
I hope fucking DMX is in heaven running Prince Philip's chain right now. I hope he's taking all his shit. He's going in his pockets right now. That's what I hope.
God, just saying, it kind of has to be done, mate. But yeah, I think, man, thank you for all that, mate. Lads, I think that's been amazing. I was going to say, another weird thing about the myth thing, and it only hit me a bit later when people were talking about it on Twitter, was he went into hospital at 4321 on the date in the American style. And I was like, that's just so weird. Oh, so many things that went into hospital on 4321.
It's LL's fault.
It's LL's fault.
One thing I was going to say before we go, is that like apparently in that Drinks Champ interview, he was saying that on the new album he was planning on working with Bono. So in a way, he went at the right time.
I think I'm the only one who likes the Kendrick Lamar U2 track.
I actually like the track until Bono comes in. I love the track until Bono.
I don't like U2 either, but you know what?
Let's not descend down that route, okay?
Let's not leave it like that. But yeah, man, R.I.P. X. I mean, it's just been great to just go through this little like memory with you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Subscribe, like the video, and obviously comments. Share your stories, man, in the comments for X, because I want to hear them. There's so many amazing personal stories. And big up all the guests who are on as well. And lads, man, until the next time, I'm sure it'll be something a bit more like upbeat, and we can actually talk about, just celebrating these artists before they go. You know what I mean? Like before they go. So yeah, man.
Yeah, totally.
Wicked.
Well,
peace out, guys.
I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stare pensively into the distance, listening to Slip In, and I can feel it. And I just want to say, if it's not too distasteful, about the Crate 808 Patreon, it doesn't cost much to support these conversations because our talk is cheap, motherfucker.
Thank fuck. I really fucking thought.
Don't do that. What are you doing? Don't pimp the Patreon. Oh, talk is cheap, motherfucker.
Someone came on form today. You had me there for a minute. I was like, this is so distasteful.
That was good. On the edge, but I love it. Right, lads, thank you, man. And much love, and we'll catch you soon.
Catch you on the flip side.
Peace. So next up, we had to go to our friends of the podcast, Notorious P.O.D, and hit up Jon Bass for his takes on DMX. He's a big fan, and obviously X was hitting so many different people all over the world, so it's nice to hear these voices and their takes on DMX's legacy, music, and career. So let's go.
Oh, mate, I'm so weird. I just listened to this. Not as hip hop as that, just in the bath. But it's getting me high. There's water all over the gaff, mate. It's the energy, mate. It's incredible.
Mate, what is going on right now? First of all, let me just make sure everything's recording. I think everything is, yeah. We're all good. But yeah, how are you, Jon, man? After hearing this fucking news, bro, let's just go.
I feel like a global pandemic is the worst thing that's happened to me in the last 18 months with MF Doom and now DMX. Those moments of genuinely I guess I've been lucky, right? There's a lot of people going through a lot worse stuff than I am. So in a world full of global pandemics, is a pretty trivial thing to be upset about. But it has really caught me off guard, mate, if I'm being honest. And the news about DMX really has, the last couple of days particularly, really just affected me. It's just been really, really sad. And unfortunately, it's with the age of some of these rappers and the health of some of these rappers, it's happening more and more, which is really sad, mate.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I know. It feels just like an eternal gut punch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just feels like doom, and then this, and yeah. And it's always like, it's weird because it's not like, you know, when someone passes and it's tragic. This one lasted like a week, and it's like you're trying to be optimistic, but you can't really be optimistic because you hear all the kind of reports, and it's like, fuck, man, nah. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm a little bit too young to really say, like, I remember when Tupac was in hospital and then subsequently passed away, right? But when I've spoken to people who were there during that time, obviously it was, I guess, kind of different because you're talking about peak of their career and one of the biggest artists in the world at that time. But it's kind of a similar thing. You're right. You kind of have two times to kind of be upset, which is, oh my God, they're in hospital. This is really, really serious. And then obviously the ultimate sad news. So yeah, it's doubly bleak, mate, which is never good.
Yeah, I know, man. Have you been finding much solace in the music? Have you been going back?
I have. I think that's one of the only positive things to come out of an artist's passing away is that not just for yourself, but everyone else just revisits or for the first time discovers music of an artist that you love. So it's in a way, it's a really nice thing that comes out of it. And that's, I guess, it's bittersweet, isn't it? You've got this aspect of this musician's art is going to be passed on and listened to and enjoyed and discovered for the first time. But we've lost that person and they don't get to see that outpouring of love. And it happens every single time. We all go, oh, we should just tell these people when they're alive because, you know, what they've given us over these years is sensational. And we haven't really given them the flowers properly, right? It's all like, you know, they come on podcasts and we tell them how much we love them and we like the album, but it's not a universal acclaim that they should get. And now seeing that. So yeah, I have taken a little bit of solace in it. It's always given me goosebumps seeing some of his performances, like his energy generally was always incredible, but his live performances just had something special. And it always just, I don't know, there's this inner sadness that I always saw behind his eyes, that the effort he would go to make other people feel good and happy and uplifted, there's something really magical about that. And I think he managed to deliver that all the time. At any kind of public appearance, he'd always kind of lift it a little bit. And I always just found that quite inspiring. Yeah, man, I feel you. That is quite X, isn't it? To be giving, but also to rob the shit out of you as well. He had this weird, like line down the middle, and it pierces through all his music, from having stuff like telling the devil to suck his dick with religious like prayers on every album, and at the same time saying, if you've got a daughter that's older than 15, I may do bad things to her. And you're like, it's a. But then again, isn't that the life and the world? The world isn't black and white. The world is like grey and tones of grey, right? So yeah, I mean, I was going to actually ask you there, you were saying there about like finding solace in the music and giving flowers. You know, one thing that I can't stop thinking about, bro, the verses. You know, the verses he did with Snoop. True.
And I'm like, at least, and I think you're like probably like me in that era when DMX came out. If you'd have told me he's going to live to 50 when I was a kid, I'd have been like, wow, like that is, I wouldn't believe you. But the fact that he did, and he had, I hope during the verses he saw some of that love just washed on him, and Snoop, you know, both of them, because that was a hell of a verses, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, this is what I mean is I'm kind of glad that there's a light flower giving for some of these artists now with the verses and with the emergence of particularly hip hop podcasting. They are getting a moment in the spotlight to really like look back on their careers and talk about it in a way that it has become legendary status, and they're getting treated in that way. So I think DMX was on like Drink Champs, and that was really exploratory in terms of his persona and his life and everything. And so he did get an opportunity to do that. But yeah, it's always really interesting to me to kind of look back on these guys' careers, especially like you say, when you're looking at DMX, when he first came out, and it's like, there's no way this guy gets to 50.
Yeah. And that's sad. It is sad you think that. But then you also think, in this world that hip hop is born from, unfortunately, that is a reality. And that's the sad thing. I think everything he's ever done, even anthems like Party Up and, X Gon Give It To You and all that, there's just tinged with sadness after a while, because you're like, fuck, man, he just really went for it and got us all partying at raves and stuff and house parties. But at the core of it, he never changed. Like, he never just went, I'm going to do a track about, like, women and like drugs and money. He'll put that stuff in his rhymes, but at the heart of it all, he'll always just be real. And I thought that was something that, even if X is making a single that is going to go number one, it don't matter. He's not going to change. He's just going to do what he does.
Yeah, and that's, I think, true of, like, there are different moments on, like, all of his albums, right? We've mentioned before about some of the, like, religious iconography in some of his lyrics and the introspective tracks. But yeah, there's always this tinge of, like, pain and realness under all of them, whether they're the big kind of party bangers or whether they're the more introspective stuff. And that, I think, is a testament to, like, his ability to channel his inner emotions into his music. That isn't repetitive. It's weird because his flow's quite similar in most of those tracks.
Yeah.
His delivery is fairly similar.
Yeah.
But he manages to create these different soundscapes and make it interesting, and that's what I think makes him endearing as an artist.
Yeah, and you're right there, actually, because although I do think he switches it up and he plays in different pockets of tracks, you can go down the technical route with X if you wanted to, but I think the overarching overall appeal to the layman, to the hip hop head in the street who has got his raucous t-shirt on, his Ruff Ryders bandana, to all those people, at the end of the day, I think it came from a well of authenticity that it just pierced through, bro. And you're right. I was actually going to ask you then, like, I know X is like, another thing about this week that he's been in, obviously his coma and obviously he's passed now. This week, the amount of stories and just either personal or just massive, like, stories where oh my God, didn't know that he went through that. And the Drink Champs episode had that as well. Is there anything that, just some of your favorite X memories? Like, do you have any like favorite X memories?
Yeah, so there are a couple that always spring to mind. One is the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer video, which like every Christmas gets brought out, and it genuinely, like, fills me with joy because it's just a man with self-awareness enough to go, I'm DMX. If I do a rendition of Red-Nosed the Reindeer, this is going to be absolutely banter, and it's also going to be complete flames. And it's just like the delivery. This is what we were talking about before, right? The energy level of his performances, no matter what he's doing, either he's fucking around doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or he's doing Party Up to 100,000 people, he commits to it. And it's epic. And I love it so much. And I think it says a lot about him, about his, like, almost like self-deprecating kindness in a way, to, like, be, like, open and to like being, mocked for something that's quite trivial, but also just, like, fully committing to it. So that for definite. I think it's probably a bit overplayed, but his performance at Woodstock is just sensational. And again, I think, like, just reminds people how massive he was. Because that was 99, right? Woodstock 99.
99. So I would say his apex is what, 98 to his last really good album, 2003. So in between that window, he was the apex. He was like the man. And you have your Jay-Z's, you have your Eminems, and they are big. They're huge, selling millions. But I do think with everything that Eminem was so big with, that DMX was just as big, but in a different I think Eminem in areas I'm never going to go down. I think they're probably going to play more X than M at that time, and
for definite.
Yeah, and one thing you were saying there about Rudolph, one thing that I can't get away from in this whole thing, especially that stems from the Rudolph video. One, X could literally sing anything and make it his own. He could do Sinatra, he could do Elvis, he could do Michael Jackson, and as long as he had this what and all, it's not even just that, just the delivery, the cadence, he'll do it. He'll make it his own. But I do think, mate, and I don't know if this is like me being hypersensitive to working with younger people and being online a lot more on social networks, I do think maybe the Rudolph thing made people kind of almost caricature him, almost make him like this weird like clown for a better word, because even though me and you from back in the day know he clearly isn't that, he would never sell out, he would always do him. I do think the younger generation saw this guy barking, doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and they probably didn't dive into his work and see the pain and suffering it came from, so I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's a really fair point. And that's why I think for me, though, that actually illustrates his character in a really strong way, that he was prepared to do that for fun, right? He wasn't doing it because like, oh, someone's going to pay me to do it. He was doing it knowing full well the potential like backlash and outcome, and didn't give a fuck about it. Yeah. Because again, like it's that level of authenticity of like, yeah, if I'm too cool to do this, that's worse. Like I would be prepared to do it, so I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I think it's funny. So I actually couldn't care less. Yeah. And in a way, I like that. I respect that. I think that it's important for these artists to, just to be themselves. And he's a prime example of someone who just, sometimes for the wrong reasons as well, right? He just did what he wanted. He lived by his emotions. And sometimes that got him in a lot of bad situations, but other times it just showed him to be actually quite a kind and open and funny and interesting person. So yeah, I get that, but I guess at the same time, like the younger generation, they missed that. So I kind of feel sorry that you didn't get to experience it firsthand and then see it through the lens that we are now. Yeah.
And the weird thing is that you say there about the emotions, and they're so wayward. He is a ball of energy and emotion no matter what he does, right? And that can go really bad. It can go really well. And that's the thing about him. There was no holding him back like a dog off a leash, like sorry for the metaphor, on the nose. But it is like that, right? Yeah. Do you remember what he said? I remember reading this thing where it was like, he said something like, because he used to rob people, when I rob people, bullets go straight, but dogs will chase you forever. And it's like, oh, that's actually how you rhymed, And it's weird how he just kind of epitomized all of it, and it was all out there for everyone to see. Is there any well, I mean, we talked about like favorite memories, but is there anything that you think songs wise you've maybe reappraised since he's passed, or just in the recent like times that you've gone back and been like, fuck man, this song, like, is there any songs that stick out to you like, fuck, that's the one?
Yeah, so it's weird because obviously we're just talking about how he made such big club bangers that kind of really were like every club night you'd ever go to, you'd always hear like Ruff Ryders anthem, Party Up, like were just staples of a night out for solid like 3 to 4 years, right? And even house parties and everything, you could throw it on, you'd know everyone would just lose their shit, right? Yeah. That I think is something that some of those other artists that we mentioned, that Eminem and Jay-Z at the time, they didn't have that like mass appeal that like people in clubs in the UK were listening to in like a mainstream nightclub, but you were also having like hip hop heads completely validate what they were putting out. And so for me, like, again, like I guess most people, when I came across DMX for the first time, it was through those bangers. It was through those like massive hits. And what I've really come to appreciate from DMX over the kind of last few years and really kind of getting back into his music is those more introspective records. So if I think about like It's Dark and Hell is Hot, Damien on there for me is legitimately like one of the most interesting concepts and brilliantly delivered hip hop records ever. Like, I think it's brilliant. And I think he shows it. Yeah, it is. It really is. And it shows a technical ability. It shows a creative ability, and it shows really about his mindset. And you were mentioning before about, you know, living on his emotions. And we were talking about how that sometimes gets him into trouble. If you think about that process through Damien, the track, and think about what happens if that was real, and how that's played out, and how he sees his life like that. Like, I've got this little voice telling me to do this bad shit, but good stuff will come. And he's like, well, I'm getting money, I'm doing tours, I am successful, and I've done all this bad shit. Like, maybe I just carry on that way. So that record has really like flown through the list and gone right to the top for me in terms of like tracks that I really appreciate from him. And again, it's like, it's become those tracks. How's It Going Down? I always just really appreciate the instrumental, and just like that is so summer vibes to me. And again, like in contrast, because those tracks are back to back on the album. But they're really like different to each other.
Yeah. Who dick was he? Was she sucking? I don't know. Like,
no one knows.
No one knows.
But, and we'll never find out.
And we'll never find out. There's lots of these never find out moments in X's catalogue. I want to go back to Damien in a minute, but I was going to say, Pac-Man, Mickey, all these little like there's so many. There's bits where he's like shaking down people on album skits, and I have no idea who these people are. Like, who are these people? And they just fleetingly come and go. And I find that, do you remember like all the hip hop videos just be to be continued at the end, and they would never be continued. And it's like DMX just threw all these threads in, and it's this wild imagination he has. And again, like everything we're talking about here, from club bangers to introspective stuff, it goes back to his utterly awful, turbulent upbringing, because would that imagination, I remember he said, I think it might be in his biography, he did say, because he's very, very abusive, like upbringing, that his mum locked him in a room for like a summer, and he wasn't allowed out except for toilet breaks for a whole summer. And I remember him saying like and then he went into solitary confinement at jail and juvie and all this. And he has actually said, my imagination was my thing to go back to. And you think that Damien and obviously Slippin' as well is kind of on that same trajectory. There's loads of these ATF and Crime Story and One More Road, all these things that are storytelling tracks. I feel the imagination is something he could have gone either way, right? In that time. And the imagination is something that really got like just accentuated through all of that stuff, man. I was going to say, did you have anything else to add to that? But sorry, before I go on.
Yeah, just a couple of other tracks I always really liked. I always thought were, I guess not underrated, but that people don't seem to mention in the same breath. From the Great Depression, which I think is actually is a really strong album that again doesn't get as much love as it should do. We Right Here is an utter banger.
Right here,
like absolute.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah.
Just the again, it's that energy, and it is that party up Ruff Ryders anthem type energy that I get from that track. But it's just something about that's amazing. And then Who We Be.
Oh, Who We Be is the other one. Yes, go. Sorry, yeah.
Again, like there's that da 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 da.
The way he attacks that track.
Oh my god. He's eating it, mate.
The cops. And you're like,
the fear, the pain, the rain. It's just like fucking hell.
You saying there about like he may have been similar with his rhyming on stuff. I think that is utterly different, like to other stuff. Like Ruff Ryders Anthem's very like ABC rap, like like that. But then he'll do something like I don't know, Through My Eyes, and it's like fuck, this is really intricate and all the ways he's rhyming. So you can go down that notepad and pen route and look at how he rhymes. But you said there about that, like when he. Let's not sleep on the fact he can harmonise like a motherfucker, this guy can. His hooks, they're infectious, do you know what I mean?
Incredible. And that record to me, again, it's like, if you want to encapsulate his ideas of pain, that track for me is like just him doing essentially the guitar riff with his voice. Yes. It's like he's saying words in those moments. And there are sections where they just highlight and zone in on him just doing that at the end of the record.
Yeah.
And again, like I can listen to that and it makes me feel an emotion of just like, I've been locked in a room and I want to get out. This is like, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was just going to piggyback on what you were saying about this idea of like solitary confinement. I had this thought when I was actually listening to some DMX in the bath, getting ready for this interview.
Best way to listen to X.
Yeah, I just thought, right, I'm gonna slosh around, get the Radox out, let's go. And I just had this thought that other rappers, whether they were in a crew or whether they're just a solo artist, you always can sort of picture them with another rapper or another significant friend or someone that's around. I always feel DMX is this lonely figure. Is this person that's on his own and sort of like maybe by choice, but he does. It's weird because his whole like motif of like the dogs thing and like everyone be together and Ruff Ryders, you'd be like, he must have loads of people, but I always feel with him, he feels like he's on his own, and there's that sadness in his eyes that he carries with him. And when he meets people, that one of the other memories I forgot to mention was when he meets Rakim. And there's just this like childish joy about it.
Yeah.
And it does just feel like for all of his like violent past and danger associated with him, there was just this little boy searching for affection and like for something. And that's also like always makes me feel really sad. And when I listen to his music, again, I always just feel that pain and that anguish and that like insecurity behind that.
Mate, you said that one of my favourite tracks from X is Look Through My Eyes on Dark and Hell Is Hot. And there's a line on that, bro, that it always got me anyway, because it made me feel like, oh, he's really going, like, telling me who he is. And he says, what the fuck is that line now? He says something like, hold on, I've got it here. Let me quickly look here. Sorry, man. Feel the pain, feel the joy of a man who was never a boy. And you're like, yeah, that's why you're with your remote control cars. That's why when he came to London to do a show, he just fucked off, went to Hamleys and got loads of model airplanes. And you're like, that you're right. You're right, Jon. It is that weird. I mean, that's what happens, right? With tragedy and trauma and stuff like that. Like, people miss out on things and it manifests in different ways. And it can be anger, it can be vitriol, it can be abuse and addiction, and it can be a childlike wonder when you meet Rakim, you know, and that's, I love that video, bro, because Rakim loves him. It isn't, Rakim must have 101 people coming to him saying, I love you, you're the god, MC. Yeah. But when X does it, Rakim's just like, yeah, I love you too. And it's just amazing.
It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah,
it's a great
amazing.
moment.
But Jon, man, I really appreciate you jumping on. I wish we could do more of this, but we've got so many guests and like we're all going to jump in. I would love to have you back on and maybe if we do a part 2 to DMX or even just bring a DMX album on, bro. Great Depression. Mate, if we could do 10 minutes on Trina Mo, but Trina Mo.
Oh. If we could find 10 minutes for that, we deserve some sort of BAFTA nomination, mate. Yeah, easily. Some sort of, a Brit Award, a BAFTA all rolled into one, and we can do it. We can do it.
I love that, man. But yeah, Jon, thank you. People go check out Notorious P.O.D. You are doing the Lord's work, my friend, with that podcast.
Bless you.
I appreciate
Bless you. We're the hip hop podcast trolls. It's beef season. Anyone can get it. We beef with each other. Just anything. You know?
Actually, on that, big up T, big up Cal. T was dropping some outrageous memes this morning, right? Yeah. It's a week since he's been in hospital. He died a few days ago, and I'm not ready to see X hugging Prince Philip in the clouds. Like, people need to stop this. Yeah, like do not. I don't want this. I don't want this.
Yeah, I know. I said to T, I was like, mate, what's he doing? He was like, look, I'm not making these. I just collect them because they're so horrendous. I feel like people need to see. If I've got to see them, everyone else has got to see them. So he's just collecting them like Thanos. It's like he's going to complete the set and then just end hip hop. 50% of all hip hop podcasts just gone overnight, just evaporated.
Man. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I'm sure people out there. I'm not gonna direct you to them, but they do exist, and it's unfortunate. But we're here, and RIP X, man. And much love. Thank you for that energy, Jon. I really appreciate it, man.
Peace. Love as always. Thanks, mate.
Peace, bro. Peace. So next up, we've got Rhymes Like Dimes podcast, one of the best ones out there doing it. I had to get Yemi come on board, and he did his stuff on the Doom tribute, brought some flames to that, and he's a younger generation, so it's always nice to hear how other people see DMX and his career, because that music is timeless. So yes, let's go in. Boom. I've just been listening to Bring Your Whole Crew, and I'm like, which man has got that many balls? He's not saying I want to go one-on-one with you. I want you to bring all of your crew, because I love eating them. I love going through all of them, bro. I ain't even gonna. Yeah, I love that. I love this guy, bro. Damn.
Bro, you need to have someone like that in your crew, bro. Someone who's just fearless. You know what I mean?
Fearless.
I was just starting his drink chaps as well, and Nori was hyping him up and that. I was like, yo, this guy's really done all these things that Nori's talking about, man.
Yeah,
it's actually mad.
Yeah,
people forget, man. People forget.
He's a myth, bro. He was a walking, like, how are you here? You know, like you after all you've done. Yemi, man, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. How are you feeling, bro? After the news.
Man, it's still a little surreal, man. So when we all found out what happened to him, even before he passed, I guess we were all in a state of shock. But I suppose for me, it was a thing of, okay, this is just another bout of adversity he has to go through. He'll come back stronger than ever, because that's what I've been used to, and that's what I've been accustomed to, and that's what I've seen from him. So I guess, and I suppose when you see celebrities kind of down and out, and they're talking openly about their problems, you kind of always expect them to come out on the other side, in a sense. At least I did anyway with X. So to find out that, you know, he had lost his battle, it was just like a sucker punch, man. 50 years old, not old at all. He was still young. He still had a lot to give to the world. Yeah, man, it just, and I know it's hit hip hop hard. I know it's hit a lot of people hard. It's just really, really sad, man, in a sense, because obviously you did want the best for him. You wanted more. You wanted him to be able to get through this and live out his days just like in good health. And even leading up to his passing, like he looked good, he looked healthy, he looked active. So, you know, we thought he was turning a corner, only to find out that, you know, these struggles are very much a daily thing that you have to deal with and you have to fight on a daily basis. And obviously we're not privy to what happens to him or anyone on a daily basis, so we don't know the struggles. But yeah, man, it's really, really sad. But to be honest, it's kind of like how I felt with Doom, in a sense where I'm sad, but to see everybody's memories, to see all the photos, see all the videos, just the conversations, the anecdotes, like, it just makes me happy, man. It makes me happy that he touched so many people. It makes me happy that he was able to touch hip hop in the way that he did. So yeah, man, as the days and the hours go by, I'm feeling, it's a bittersweet feeling for sure, but it's also knowing that he's resting now, he's at peace. And just the fact that he had so much love for everybody and people had so much love for him. And that's probably what's gonna endear me the most, the fact that everybody has not a bad thing to say about him as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it right now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, bro, because you're saying there like how he's healthier. His past has just been so like a winding road of like just obstacles and tribulations and pain. And then when you see him on Drink Champs and you see him do the verses, and then you see Bout Shit drop with Locks, and you're like, that's good. Like, that's not, you know, when you hear like a 50-year-old rapper now might drop something, you might be a bit hesitant. And I was hesitant. But when I heard that track, I was like, this new album could be dope. Like, he's bringing that X. He's bringing X. That's what I want, you know? And for all this that people say like, oh, an artist needs to show growth or whatever, I think with X, what I always found was I didn't need him to show growth because he had so many things to dive into, his well of like life experience. I was like, we could tap into that forever, you know, and like still find things. And yeah, I was really interested in what his next phase was going to be, man. Like, you know, you hear about his new album and stuff, and but
I kind of agree with you, like in a sense where he kind of doesn't need any room for growth because he's obviously been through so much, and he came out of the gate showing growth in a sense because he was very, very, very open about his past and, you know, his struggles and everything like that. So what more could you ask for from a rapper, you know? You know, some rappers we see burst onto the scene, we don't really see that from them until maybe the third, fourth album. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he came out of that straight from the gate. And the fact that, I suppose in a sense, the fact that it always kept happening, the struggles and stuff, there was always something, there was always subject matter, there was always material to tap into. And obviously his faith in God was very, very, very important to him as well. So, and that never gets old. So yeah, when he hops on a Locks tune, and him and the Locks always work well together anyway. Yeah. It kind of gives you hope. It gave you hope. And it let you know that, yo, just because he has, you know, been through what he's been through, hasn't affected his pen, hasn't affected his ability to perform. And even we saw that in the verses. Like, he still gets a kick out of just being that guy, performing his hits, you know what I mean? Just being the life and soul, being the spirit. And that's what he is, bro. He's like very much a big spirit in this hip hop thing, man. And yeah, gone too soon, man. Gone too soon.
Exactly, man. For all of what you've said as well, you know, when you say like his spirit and energy, like it's quite it's a hard thing to put into words because you can talk about rapping style and beats and swizz and Dane Grease and all this, but I also think with X there was sorry to say, but X factor from him because one, he was photogenic as a motherfucker. Like you would see him and he would pierce through his eyes, his demeanor, everything about him in almost every photo he took. It was like Pac. It was like Pac. And you would be like, wow. And that energy isn't just his rhyming. And that obviously then translated into film and his acting and his demeanor. And I don't know if you ever watched Fresh Off the Boat, but I'm sure you've seen the memes of like him with the orchids. And you're like, that aura and that spirit of him, it wasn't even in music after a while, was it? It was just in him doing him, like him being in normal life, you know, just going around normal life. And I think that's
he
a big
did
thing. Go on, man.
A lot of rappers, maybe especially early on in his career, he did what a lot of rappers probably can't do in maybe the first 5 or 10 years of their career, as far as being that transcendent guy.
Yeah.
You know, obviously from the music, the photos of your saying, and moving on to films and stuff. Like, he very much like was a prototype for how the modern rap.
Yo, oh man, Yemi, I've lost you, bro. I've lost you. Hold on. Oh damn, my internet.
He's just been able to start to just kick into at any moment's notice and stuff like that as well. So, and obviously like the first 2 album covers, probably one of the best, like as far as just pure photos, that the game was seeing as well. So yeah, man, he had a lot going for him. He had a lot going for him, especially in the early days.
Can you hear me? Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh man, I lost you. I lost you for that whole section.
Can you hear me?
No, not for that whole section. I didn't get you at all. So I didn't.
Where'd you lose me?
I lost you when you basically started the sentence. So hold on 2 seconds. Do you want to go back and just say what you were saying?
You're kind of breaking up a bit.
Yeah, I think I don't know whose internet it is, but fuck it, we'll go in. But yeah, man, say what you were saying. Sorry, man, just repeat it if you could.
What was I saying?
I was just saying
that, I think with him, he had early in his career, he did, as far as transcending the game, what a lot of rappers probably haven't been able to do in the first like 5 or 10 years of their career. Just as far as, you know, being able to not only be this amazing MC and be this amazing artist, but taking that energy, taking that aura, taking that presence into something greater like films and stuff like that, to where even on Fresh Off the Boat, like 20 years later, he's still doing his thing. And like you said, it is that packed energy. He does have that gravitas to him that, you know, it's kind of like a magnetic pull.
Yeah.
Like, especially early on in his career, he definitely, wherever he went, like people were drawn to him. You know, it was the rawness, it was the charisma, it was the energy, it was all of that. He was just a complete package in a sense. And yeah, man, I think that shines through. That shines through whenever any interview that you see him on, any like video you see him in, all of that shines through. And yeah, that's another endearing part of him, an endearing part of his qualities, for sure.
I think it shines through as well, bro, because...
Did you get all that?
Yeah, got it, man. Got it. Wicked. I think it shines through because there's a heart and core which is just not fake, right? And it's just like he was always himself, be it good, be it bad, be it whatever. And it's like... He had, I think back then it might have been harder with gatekeepers and magazines and labels to maybe put you in more boxes. But today you have stuff like Drink Champs, you have stuff like Versus, you have stuff like Instagram Lives and stuff like that, where he can just do him. And, you know, and I feel like he was born in that era when he did it anyway. He didn't need any of those. And, yeah, no, it's just so sad. But I also find, like you said, it is also like shit. We got to see that as kids, and it pierced through all of our discographies of all the artists we love. DMX always had a special like category. I can't even put a word on it. You know, like in your albums when you pick a DMX album out, you're like, well, we're going to go on a journey right now, guys. You know, this is going to be bangers, but it's also going to be like some really introspective, heartfelt stuff. On that tip, have you been revisiting a lot of the music? Is there any tracks or albums that have been hitting you hard since you heard the news?
Yeah, man. So I listened to Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood yesterday. And yeah, man, it was really hitting, man. It was really hitting. It kind of showed me like the best bits of all of his qualities. Like you kind of have the more confessional side of him. Yeah. You have the more funny side. You have the more like determined to get out of my situation type side, and obviously you have Slippin'. Yeah, man. It just like I don't know, man. I feel like with that tune especially, man. It's kind of a thing where you know he's going through things, but rarely do you really deep or really comprehend just how much he's laying it bare as much as he is in that song. It's so man, I struggle to find the words because that's how real it is. And that whole album just shows you just how real it is. Like that tune with Mary J. Blige as well. Like there's so many dope tunes on there. Yeah, man, the beat on that is just fire, man. I mean, and everyone comes to play. Mary, Locks, Jay, everybody.
Marilyn Manson.
It's even Marilyn Manson. And I was just like, man, how did this tune age? To be honest, it did okay. Marilyn Manson didn't do too much. He didn't do too little. He did the perfect amount. So man, you know what I mean? So that was dope. And yeah, man, that album especially, listen to the intro again from It's Dark as Hell and Hell is Hot.
One of my favorites,
yeah, man, one of the best intros, hip hop history, period. Damien as well. Obviously Ruff Ryders anthem. And it kind of took me back to when I first discovered DMX, because it was my older brother and sister who loved him. Like, and I think I heard the Ruff Ryders compilation album before anything else.
Ride or Die.
So, yeah. So that would have been like, I would have been maybe about 8 or 9 when it came out, or maybe even younger. And being that age, obviously hearing a man bark is a bit of a mad one. And obviously that is going to gravitate you towards someone, especially as you're kind of getting into this rap thing anyway. You've heard the Biggies, you've heard the Tupacs, you've heard the Busters and stuff. This is something completely different. And then obviously you grow up and you hear like such iconic tunes, such as obviously Ruff Ryders anthem, Let's Go and Give It to You, Party Up, and all that stuff as well. Like it's all, man, the guy had hits, man. And
his singles were serious. His singles.
Man, very, very serious. And fam, it was just a thing where he always did him, like regardless, even if he did do more glossier singles, like Let's Go and Give It to You is probably not the same as like a Ruff Ryders anthem. It was still him, man. He still carried that energy. Where the Hood At, like that's a video that I'll always remember as well. I think that was the first video where it was like one song and then it switched to another song. And I'd never heard that. I didn't know like rappers did that. I didn't know videos did that as well. So I was a bit confused, like, whoa, like what's going on here? Because you went from really energetic to like really, really sad. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is a bit different.
Kato.
But man. Yeah, man, for sure. Man, it was so raw. It was so raw. Obviously the dogs and like between you and me, even though it's going out, I was always really scared of dogs growing up. So to see him so hone in on that as well, it kind of like, it was scary in a sense, but it was also, you could tell it was him, you know? So it was definitely something that endeared me even a lot more. But yeah, man, I've been just going through the whole catalog, to be honest. I was listening to I Miss You earlier today as well, with Faith.
Yeah,
man. Everything. Yeah, man. Very much so. Everything is just, I mean, a lot of it is very poignant, like especially with him as well. And I think that's a perfect word to describe him as well. Very, very poignant. And just like, yeah, man, tapping into like some bits of your psyche and your emotions that you didn't know you had, man. Like I'll finish listening to DMX and wonder to myself like, well, bro, like this is what emotion is, man. This is what being able to feel feels like, sort of thing. So yeah, man, for that, like he definitely taught me that in that respect. Like I feel like with a lot of music, you can kind of just take it as it is, and you know, some of it is microwave and stuff like that, whereas some is really going to hit you and touch you. And DMX definitely has that for me. And especially as I'm older now and I can appreciate the messages and I can appreciate where he was at certain times, you can appreciate the artistry and the work that went into it, even though it felt effortless, you know what I mean?
He was, absolutely, you're right. The talent to be able to articulate your feelings coming from a place where that isn't something. Like, I can't imagine, I've not been from that place, so I'm speaking from maybe a more voyeuristic point of view, but everything I've read is, it's actually really hard to talk about your feelings in these situations when you're in, you know, army salvation bins and making dogs your friends and, you know, and like, and having your mum drop you off at a school and leaving you. Like, you could probably just go very introspective and rage be your articulation, you know? And it's almost like he had a talent, and I hear things that he was very good at school, you know, when it came to creativity in the early days, And I can't help but feel that's a talent. That is a talent to be able to articulate what you're feeling, because there's 101 million people out there who can't. And Slipping is so monumental for that, I feel, because that is a pop track, as in that was very popular. It sold loads. The video was huge, always on rotation. But listen to it. It isn't. Do you know what I mean? This is like a letter to people who can't speak about these things. And I feel like for all the bangers, for all the videos like What's My Name, where I know you don't like dogs, but even in What's My Name, where it's flashy, he's got the red leathers, he's still got the pits, he's still got the pit bulls, and they're fighting, and you're like, even then, you know, and the Jigger cameo in that. I remember as a kid, seeing that video, being like, shit, man, Jigger's even in there doing the old, love that.
Yeah, man. For real. And to that point, like, it's especially harder to articulate your emotions and even just share them as a black man. Like, we're told, like, growing up that we don't share our emotions. You know what I mean? Big boys don't cry, and that rings true even more so with like black men who are kind of just taught to just get on with it, and we're taught to kind of just internalize whatever we're feeling. So he was a breath of fresh air, and especially like during the time when he came out, and hip hop is kind of going towards like, you know, the shiny suit era, more glossy stuff, and you know, he kind of takes you back to the trenches in a sense, especially in a mainstream level, because obviously his first two albums went number one in the same year, and he's doing that off emotional gutter music, like that completely slaps the face of what was going on in rap at the time, sort of thing. And the fact he was able to articulate it so well and rap well as well. Like, I also feel like his rap skills may not necessarily be as appreciated as they should be, because it's very hard to articulate how you're feeling and still be able to deliver it in a way that is like digestible. And he did that in spades. And for that, like, you have to appreciate him for it, man. And even outside of that, again, the videos, the energy, the visceralness of it all, like, he painted a picture of what a day in the life is for him every time, like, with the pits, with everything, even if he is doing more glossy stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's a talent, man. It's a talent. It's a talent that not a lot of people have. Yeah, man. It's a mad one still.
It's weird when you say that time he came out, though, bro, because the time he came out, I remember at that time, if you are someone like Doom, quite hard to decipher for a lot of the masses, right? He slowed things down at times, and it was more the impact of every line. And I can't help but think, like, when you hear Jay-Z, and obviously he then went on to become what he is now, a GOAT, I wonder what that effect was on Jigger, because obviously he battled him, and the amazing myths you hear about, like, them battling on pool tables with Big L and the camera and all that shit. That alone is crazy. But when you hear someone like Jay-Z, who's gone from his rhyming gymnastics from Reasonable Doubt, by the time Volume 3 comes out, Volume 2 comes out, it is slower. Hard Knock Life is completely slower. He's reined it in. He's taking his time. He's letting everything land. And that, for me, I remember hearing that from X and being like, yeah, that's what I'm getting from you, bro. And that feeling was just real, like you said, real. And it was like, just transports you to that time, man. On that thing then, I was going to say, just to wrap it, was like, obviously, favourite X memories. Do you have any, like, memories of, like, X when he was doing crazy shit, or shows, or just songs that relate to you, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. With me, it's a thing where I kind of got a little bit more into the X story last year. Like, I watched a little bit of the Ruff Ryders BET documentary, so I learned a little bit more about his life up into, like, before rap and stuff. I watched Belly for the first time last year as well, and you know, that was just great. I think one of my favorite memories was when he went on the Breakfast Club and he said he don't like anything about Drake. And it was just the way he did it. He was, I don't like anything about this, I don't like this. He just listed all the things he doesn't like about him. And I was just like, at that point, I was on my, like, very anti-Drake rhetoric. I think that was around the time when he had, like, tried to diss Kendrick for Control. And I was just like, yeah, man, forget him. And then DMX was, like, doing all this, like, yes, I understand you, DMX. I understand you. Like, I'm with you. I'm right there. So,
do you know what he even said? He even said, I don't like his haircut. Bro.
Listen, man. I'm not even mad at it because have you seen Drake's haircut these days? He's got a flipping heart around it. You know what I mean? So X probably low key hated that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just Charlemagne just laughing his head off as well. Like that's definitely an endearing memory. And obviously singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, classic. Really and truly, he should have just like
released that
as a single. That would have been the new All I Want for Christmas Is You. That would have been the new thing that we play every year. You know what I mean?
It'd be number one.
That would have been the new thing.
It'd be Christmas number one.
100%. He would definitely could have done it. Like maybe get Mariah on the remix. Who knows? You know what I mean? Yeah, man. And I remember watching this hip hop DX video. Shout out to Justin Hunt. This piece he wrote on the breakdown about X and just how much he had been through. And there was this clip. I think it was the first time he went on Drink Champs, and he kind of just broke down. Talking about his addiction and stuff like that, and talking about his faith with God, and that hit me as well. So as much as we have amazing memories of him, there are also the memories that stick in your head. You know, maybe not necessarily for the most positive reasons, but it let you know that obviously it is very much a daily struggle for him. And it touched me, man. It touched me to just like knowing that even after having a career such as his, you know what I mean, and all the twists and turns, he is still just a human, man. And humans make mistakes. Humans, go on the wrong path and stuff. But it's acknowledging that and knowing that, you want to change yourself that, really stuck out to me as well. So I always remember that. Romeo Must Die was a great film.
Yeah.
And for the time, you know what I mean? It was cool. Shout out to Jet Li. Even Jet Li tweeted about him. So I thought that was great.
That's a level though, bro. Jet Li ain't tweeting about anyone else. Do you know what I mean? That's crazy.
Exactly, man. That just tells you about the man, bro. It just tells you about the man. I was never fortunate to see him live or anything, but obviously the Woodstock videos, that will never not get old. Like just seeing that sea of humanity just there for him, at the height of his powers as well. Like, man, I can imagine it was such an adrenaline rush, like, because I couldn't possibly imagine myself performing just that many people, but he just handled it like a boss, man. He was like a commander in chief, just like commanding the troops, man. Like various like mosh pits just going mad and stuff, just to him and stuff. And
all white. Like just coming from my point of view, before that video dropped, I remember at the time white people getting into him where I was, and I'm surrounded by white people where I was, and I was like, oh wow, hip hop everyone loves, and it's not Eminem, it's great, and that was good. But I remember when I saw that and that energy, me thinking at that time, we've made it as a culture. Like we've taken over rock now. We are rock. Like that's a rock metal crowd, and he is rocking them harder than anyone else who came on that day. And fucking bless him, whoever had to come on that stage that day, because do you know what I mean? Bless anyone who had to perform with X, because I think it was Be Real who said it on his pod. He was like, if you're coming on and X is on, and Cypress Hill was one of the best live acts. He was like, you gotta bring 110%. You can't even be 99 because X is always going to bring that. And big up to anyone who survived the Stratford Rex shows. Any of you listeners out there, viewers, who went to the Stratford Rex shows in 2000 and 2003, did two different shows. 2000 is a show I will always remember because I almost died, and that was the cue getting in, Yemi. That was the cue getting in, bro. Wow. Yeah, it was like
was everyone just amped?
It was well, let's just say this: the security guards were the worst. Everyone was so bad, and the security guards had to be even worse. That the whole crowd was swaying, trying to get in. I remember them literally getting you by the cuff and dragging you out. Their search was this, bro. Went into my pockets, got all my shit, and just threw it on the floor. That was the security guard, bro. I remember thinking, and there was a van with the slide door open, speakers, and Black Rob's Woe just fucking pumping out, repeat, doing circuits. And I was like, what is this show, bro? I'm 19. Like, I'm going into a show. I've never been to a show like this. And when we went in, X, that was the prequel. And when X delivered that Woodstock video, that is real. Like, for anyone who was at any of these shows, that's what DMX did. He did that. He ripped it. 100 miles an hour for like 2 hours. It's crazy. But yeah.
Sounds like sparring practice at a DMX gig, man. I can't even lie.
It is. You got to sharpen them bows, bro. You got to sharpen them bows.
I would have loved to have seen that just for the pageantry of it. I would have, like, just as like a fly on the wall, just like opposite the road, not in any intention of going into the rave, but like actually just seeing, raw, these men are actually moving mad for DMX. But that's the power of DMX.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even like beefed up security got to be even more beefed up to fight like 1,000 angry people. So it's mad.
Yeah, you know, mad. Bro, you know. But
yeah,
Yemi, man,
sure.
thank you for all the love. Thank you for all this DMX like just love, because I feel I feed off it, bro, and it's big, and I appreciate that. Everyone, go check out Rhymes Like Dimes, because you guys are doing great work, man. I love it, and big up to the squad. And yeah, until the next time, bro. I'm sure you'll be on again at some point. Yeah, much love, bro.
Thank you, bro. And listen, man, big up yourself, man. You're very, very important for doing this, man. Like, and it's only you, man. You do it in your own way. Like, you bring so many different people together, and it's always so natural and just a conversation and just a trip down memory lane, man, which is what we all want to see, especially in these times. So, you know, big up to you, man, for doing what you do, and keep it up, man. For sure, man. Big up to you.
Thank you, bro. It means a lot. I respect you in your writing as well, by the way. Go check out Yemi's articles, man. Always smashing it. So, yeah. But thank you, bro. And I shall catch you soon. Peace.
Take care, bro. In a bit.
Peace. So, next up, we've got Luke James, just one of the best people to talk to about hip-hop, man. He's just so much fun, and I know he's a big X-head, and I know obviously that, you know, he loves his reviews, so we had to go talk to him and see where he's at right now. And I'll tell you what, it was really enjoyable. This is such an enjoyable little segment. So yes, enjoy it. Luke James up next. Luke, man, thank you for jumping on again. I'm sorry, it's because another rapper has passed away that we...
I know, right?
That we're doing
crazy.
This. It's mad. But I know you're saying there you're playing a lot of X. Tell me, man. Tell me what you've been playing. What have you been bumping?
I just been revisiting his first two albums the most. Those are the ones that really resonate with me, because I look back. I mean, this is us getting older. You're going to hear some old head shit from me in this. I'm just going to put it out there from the start. But it takes me back to junior high, my early high school years, those two albums. And just when X came out, he had such a raw, unique sound. He's one of those rappers that even up to this day, when you would hear him on a song, you knew it was X.
Yeah.
You knew it was him. You know, you didn't question if it was someone else. Like, no one could imitate X. He was just truly one of a kind. And you think about all the things he did with the Ruff Ryders movement. I mean, Ruff Ryders anthem obviously is, I mean, it's called an anthem. It is the anthem of all anthems.
Yeah.
Just the bangers that he's given us, like, oh man. It's hard to even focus, like, talking about. Like, I can't believe he's gone, and there's just so many different directions I could go in with what I have to say, because he's one of the staples of my life as a hip hop fan, you know?
Absolutely, man, definitely. I know you're saying there about like going back to those albums, because he was in hospital for a week. It was weird because it gave me time to really reappraise some of his music, and I was listening to Great Depression and Fame, and I was like, man, I forgot, like, for all the bad stuff that's on that album, there's actually some really good stuff on that album.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's actually like pretty good. And man, Fame is just one of them tracks. And you know, one track that really hit me home, and it was like all these amazingly popular singles, even on X Is Gonna Give It To You, when he says, I've been doing this for 19 years, you want to fight me? Fight these tears.
Yes, man. X had bars, man. And the thing with him is he was so damn versatile. Like, he'd be praying on one song, the next song he'd be telling you to suck his dick, the next song he'd be telling you to throw your hands in the air and party, and then he'd be getting deep and introspective. But this is what I always loved about X, is for all the good and bad, all the different things he went through, the ups and downs, he was always himself. He was always really real. Like, a lot of rappers talk about being real and what real is. I'm the realest, but DMX was actually the realest, I think. Yeah. Because he gave no fucks while also giving a lot of fucks. You get what I'm saying? Like, he was himself all the time. And you saw so many different sides of him, as I was alluding to earlier, with his content and even doing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know, having fun and joking around, and seeing clips like that just really, you know, almost brings a tear to my eye, man. Like, X, he's going to go down as a legend and a pioneer to me. And one thing I got to get off my chest, man, I've been thinking about this.
Go.
These damn people got to stop with every time a rapper dies, especially like from our generation, with this, oh, so now you're a fan. It's like, these kids were born in 98 talking about, no, you're a fan. X wasn't that big. I've seen people tweeting shit like that. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Man.
Dude was the biggest rapper legitimately for a couple years.
Yeah.
He dropped 2 like all-time great hip-hop albums in 98.
Yeah.
It's Dark and Hell's Hot, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Those 2 albums came out the same year. Fire albums to this day. Like, I like damn near every song.
Yeah.
But you always get these people who are like, no, you're a fan. He wasn't that. Just talk. You know, if you don't know something, you don't got to say it. Just don't say anything, man.
Yeah, I know.
And it gets irritating, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am with you. It's weird how these things bubble up when someone passes. And I feel like, I know you want to hold on to stuff. I know you want to hold, he's ours, but X had 5 #1 albums in a row. He's everyone's. Let's just remember, he is everyone's, and everyone has their own take on him. I remember like, a lot of people telling me maybe around 2010, maybe like 2013, and people were like kind of clowning on him a little bit. And I'm not saying like it's hard to look at someone and clown on them when they've been through what they've been through, and they've given us so many memories. And I find it's nice that he got to a place where that had gone. I reckon in the last few years, it felt a bit more like DMX was part of our lives in a way that it was a bit more happy and funnier, and in Chris Rock films and stuff like that, where you're like, it's nice that he's about that top 5 cameo. I remember being in tears when I saw that top 5 cameo. Have you watched Top 5? Have you seen Top 5?
I saw that a long time ago.
Do you remember the X cameo?
What was his part in that?
He was the one where where Chris Rock's in jail. Spoiler alert, everyone. He's in jail, and you just hear this. Grrr. And you're like, what the fuck? I remember watching that film and being like, why? Is that DM? And he's like, oh, it's DMX. It is DMX. And Chris Rock's like, why are you here? Because I live in this motherfucker. And someone has
I got to rewatch that.
Mate, please do, just for that scene.
Because
someone has a go at him and he's like, I'm trying to express myself, motherfucker. And you're like, he knew, man. But yeah, I appreciate that, man. How have you, I don't know, first of all, you said there about he came a young age for you. But one thing I did want to know, like, you had the authenticity, but you know his rapping style. Like, the way
so
he went
unique.
in. Yeah, for you, what was it about that hit differently for you?
Obviously, I mean, this man's coming on the track, barking and growling, and we're cool with it. The fact that he could pull that off tells you how dope he is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if a rapper just came out today and just was like, meow, trying to do some cat shit or something, you'd be like, what is this? But he was barking on the track and growling, and it was fire. And you believed him, just the raw aggression, that raspy voice. And I loved his flow. You know how he'd start rapping, he'd kind of go like this, and he'd bring it right back. And if you want to, he had such a unique cadence. His vocals, his flow, his style, his versatility. And one thing I think that doesn't get talked about enough, or at least I haven't seen it get talked about too much, is how he really helped bring horrorcore elements to the mainstream. Yeah. You know, like he was rapping. I mean, violence and shit like that was always there, and there were other rappers that did it. But DMX had a lot of those eerie sounding beats. You know, the shit sounded like it was out of Castlevania. And then he had these bars that were just so grimy and vivid. The mental health stuff, like on Slippin'. I mean, that's not so much horrorcore, but that's that dark feel to it. But again, I was talking, blood on my hands because there's no remorse. I don't even got to say the rest. We already know where that goes. Yeah. But
that's
everything about him. Everything about him was just so unique, man. Everything. And he would get on these tracks. He would be featured and he would body the shit. Like if you saw featuring DMX, you knew he was going to kill it. Yeah. Even when he showed up on like Money Cash Hoes. Oh man. I was revisiting that. DMX, my dog's bite. He snapped on that.
God.
And for my fellow nerds out there, by the way, do you know what that samples? Do you know what that beat samples?
No, go.
You know that?
Yeah. What is that?
Golden Axe.
Oh, is that Golden
Yeah, it's from Golden Axe. I believe it's when, if you've ever played Golden Axe, there's a little guy that runs out. He's like a gnome.
Yeah,
he's a treasure gnome. You start whooping his ass and he's dropping gold and shit. I'm pretty sure that's what it's from, is that exact part. But I know it's Golden Axe.
Oh my God, that's mad. That is
just
mad.
Had to throw that out there.
No, absolutely. You were right there about the features. You were right there about the features. I remember Money, Power, Respect, when Money, Power, Respect came out. And it was like, Little Kim's big. The Locks are doing their thing. The Locks aren't weak, they're big. And then bang, he just came out with that.
What a time. What a time to be alive. 24 hours to live.
Mate, do you know also,
24 left until my death.
Yeah. Do you know what's amazing about 24 Hours to Live? We did a Mace episode and I went into that really? just looking at the lyrics of 24 Hours to Live. And I think DMX goes into Wall Street with a pack of C4 and his dog and blows himself and the dog and everyone up. And I found that really bad. The dog got it, like Boomer got it, and it was like, why is Boomer getting it? Boomer didn't ask to be taken to this bombing that
That's
you're gonna
that classic line. Out with a bang, you will remember my name. I wanted to live forever, but this wasn't fame.
Yeah,
X, man.
Yeah. Man.
And I just think I keep coming back to like the raw aggression and just working out to his music. Like whatever you can bench, you put some DMX on, you're benching double that, maybe triple that. You're on the treadmill, you're going the highest setting, full incline, 5 hours. Like he just would bring it to you. And the way he would start off some of these songs, like, you know, you go back to the first time you're hearing some of these songs and you press play, you're just waiting. And he's like, motherfucker, like, oh shit. He kicks it off, right?
Yeah.
Calling you right from the start. He's yelling at you, he's barking at you, and you're like, oh, I better stand up straight. Okay. You're ready to go, you know? Like DMX, he did not waste time, man.
He didn't. What's that one where he starts the track and he's like, hey, and he just screams, raise on flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. It's one of them tracks on there where he just screams for like 10 seconds.
Is that the title track when he's like, flesh of my what is
it is. It is. I think
flesh of my flesh,
blood of my blood.
I was listening to that when I was working out this morning. I'm telling you, man, that got me so hyped.
Yeah.
Like, and that cover ties into what I was saying with the sort of horrorcore elements, just covered in blood like that.
Yeah,
man, he was so unique.
Yeah,
and all the shit that he did for Ruff Ryders, like those of us that were there when X was out and Ruff Ryders were out, man, what a movement that was. Yeah. I remember playing. If you remember WWF Warzone on PlayStation, do you remember that?
I don't remember that, no.
It was one of the first great wrestling games, man.
Yeah.
And I remember I made a character, big buff brother, and he had the camo bandana on, and his name was Ruff Ryder, you know?
Nice.
And I used to wear my bandana back in junior high and high school sometimes with a little triangle on the side. You know how he's doing that in Ruff Ryders Anthem?
Big look.
Man, they were...
That was a strong look. We all had Ruff Ryders t-shirts over here, bro. Trust me.
Man. Oh, the chain?
Yeah.
I never had one, but I wanted one. I wanted a Ruff Ryders chain, a Cash Money chain, a No Limit chain.
Do you know the chain? The weird thing is, I was actually reminded, I've had this chain for like 20 years from my wife, and she was like, really? You know, I think you got that because you like DMX's chain, but you couldn't rock the DMX chain because you ate DMX, and it was like the closest thing you could possibly get. And I was like, oh, do you think, oh my God, DMX like permeated everything. It was like
so
crazy.
Influential.
Yeah.
So influential. And that's what's funny about, I mean, it's sad at first, I should say. It's sad about getting older is seeing our legends pass. But what's funny about it is when the kids are talking about it, I just said the kids. I literally just said the kids. Man, I'm done. I'm toast. But for real, like you see them talking about it and you're just like, you have no idea. You have no idea how big and influential DMX was and just how he bodied everything that he got on. Like you were saying, you know, all those platinum records going #1 with all these songs and albums. Like, man.
That's crazy. Absolutely
never
crazy.
Another X. Like, and it really just, you know, some more old head shit. But back then, like so many rappers were so unique. You still have unique rappers today. Don't get me wrong, but it was more limited back then, right?
Yeah.
So it's like people really tried to have these crazy unique styles. Like X, you knew when you heard X. You knew when you heard like Nelly or Twista or Eminem, Dre, Snoop, like everyone, you know, and it's sad to think we're losing these people. Like we lost DMX, MF Doom.
Yeah.
It's just, we're at that time in our life, man, where we're seeing our legends go, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. On that, it's quite sad hearing like, well, it's sad, but it's also like he lived his life. Like he had a life, and if you look at all the stuff he went through, from getting beaten up by his mum, getting hit by a drunk driver, getting hit by a drunk driver, and his mum being a Jehovah's Witness and not taking the money because they don't believe in charity and stuff like that.
And losing his dog too. His dog getting hit too.
Yeah, and his dog as well. And you're like, all this stuff about how he grew up, and then you think, at least he got time to enjoy himself. You know, obviously he wasn't like you hear all these things about him going to jail and abuse and all this stuff, but man, he had to come out of that and just have any semblance of life must be
you know, amazing. He had some fun with songs like "It's All Good, It's All Right,"
you know he
fuck
did.
All day. You know, I was listening to that this morning too. Man, you know he's having fun doing that. And we can't forget all the girls that he was with. On What These Bitches Want. Is that not? That's such an epic verse, man.
Mate.
That shit is so iconic. And in the video, it's got all the baddies in there.
How?
Every time he says a name, it shows one.
Yeah. How? How has someone got away with doing a verse and all he's doing is saying women's names?
And it's fire.
It's
it's heat, man.
It's fire.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can remember certain parts, but it impresses me the people that remember how to say the names in order in that verse. I know some of them. I always know about 3 Kims because that part makes me laugh, right? He's not sure. He's like, how many Kims?
This is about
3 of them, at least. Juanita, Cookie. Oh, I met her at an ice cream parlor. He had all the lines in there.
Hey, apparently there was the woman Cookie is a real person. Apparently.
Really?
Yeah, I think it might be It's the Real or something like that. Tweeted it big up. They did do because mate. I'm sure your timeline's been the same. This whole week has just been story upon story and insight upon insight into this legacy where you're like, there was a Cookie. Oh right, okay, I didn't know that. And also like, I don't know if it was just me, but I did feel bad about loving my baby mama. I'll never let her go. I was like, I kind of like my baby mama. I don't know.
Wasn't that sort of a dig at Corrupt?
Oh, was it?
I'm not 100% sure, but I was doing a little bit of research, and some of that verse apparently is somehow aimed at Corrupt because they had problems. Obviously, you must have heard calling out names. Motherfuck D, motherfuck M. Only X I know is Exhibit and Aubrey X, right? And I know they had a thing with Foxy Brown, some sort of love triangle going on there.
Yeah.
And from the little bit of reading that I read, some of that verse is supposed to be aimed at him somehow.
Right. But I knew
that's what I've read. Like, I'm not going to say it's facts. You don't, you never know what really went on there. But so that's just something to point out if anyone wants to look into it and see.
100%. Yeah. What was the one where Ends done started something? I might be that track. I might be getting it wrong, but someone was saying on Twitter that he's calling out Snoop on that track. I was like, is he? I didn't even know that. And I don't know if it's that track, but there was like subs at Snoop and stuff like that. But again, it adds to this mythos of this character of a man. I tell you what adds to the mythos, right? When you hear something like Damien, right? And
Damien.
It's unreal. Damien is unreal.
Man.
And to get into the mindset to record that album generally, I remember reading an interview with Dame Grease. And it might be Thomas Jobs who did that interview. Big up.
Shout out Dame Grease, by the way. Not to interrupt, but Dame Grease does not get the credit he probably deserves.
No, absolutely.
He did so much of the production and work on that album and a bunch of other DMX stuff and other artists as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. 100%. Big up Dame Grease. And he was saying, like, the recording sessions for Dark and Hell is Hot, there were pits in there, there were hood people in there, there was the studio itself. And he was saying when he went in to do Damien, DMX was chewing on dog bones, bro. Like, he was chewing on bones. He was like getting in the mindset, trying to get into that split personality, like kind of mindset. And I think he got like diagnosed later as well. Like, I don't know if he was diagnosed bipolar, but there's so much misdiagnosis goes on in the world that you don't know until later, I suppose. But it's mad when you think like this guy was like so on it, and this mythos of him, like, was that real? I don't know, but you don't put it past him, right? Like,
oh no, man. But that song just as soon as you say Damien by DMX, you can just hear those creepy strings. Like I said, Castlevania is what that reminds me of, right? Those strings coming in, the way he was doing both voices, and his storytelling is like top tier. You look at songs like that, Heat, I believe, is the one where he goes up he's robbing the bank.
Yeah.
I think that's the one where he's got all kinds of other songs where he's telling stories and stuff like that. But another eerie song, one of my favorite DMX songs to this day, Stop Being Greedy. Y'all been eating long enough now. Stop. And the barking. I remember being a kid and just probably sounding like a chihuahua, just hitting puberty. DMX, baby. But I have so many memories to that album. And you know how sometimes you have like weird, boring memories, but you have those memories. So here's a boring one for you. Living where I live, man, it gets really cold here in Nova Scotia. So we get a big pile of wood. It gets chopped up and you got to throw it in the basement and stack it up, obviously to heat your home, right? And I remember I would always see that pile of wood at the end of the driveway and I'd be like, oh, God, I gotta deal with all this. But that album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, I was listening to that shit like the whole week I was doing that. And I always think of that.
That's weird.
Like I know it's such a boring story, like pile of wood and whatever. But it's for whatever reason, it just always reminds me of that. Certain songs remind you of things, certain albums do. And that album always it got me through, man. I hated, didn't want to do chores at that age, especially something boring like that, working in the cold and it's hard to do.
Yeah.
But I just remember having that album on repeat, man. And it got, like I said, it got me going, got me throwing that wood in there.
You were chopping that wood like a motherfucker. It's like, I'm really chopping this wood right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's getting chopped. It's done.
Oh man, that's true. You have these. I think everyone has these emotional attachments to such legendary artists, and I just remember at the time I was saying this. I posted this because I couldn't believe that's actually the same thing that happened. Was we wouldn't be doing this podcast, this show, if it wasn't for X, because the guy who does it with me and helps me, Raymond Ridge, we actually were jumping on. And in '99, we went to university. I came from a place where didn't know much hip hop, and weird thing is, DMX was one of the few artists that people listened to at that school, and hip hop was not on the curriculum anywhere. Like no one listened to that, and it was weird. And then when I got to university, finding my real like hip hop head fans, mates, his first words to me when he came over was like, "Oh, I heard you're into DMX and Ruff Ryders."
Are we best friends now?
It felt like stepbrothers. It was like, hold on, what? And now we're doing a podcast, and it was like, yeah, it's weird how these things all align. In our age group, I feel for X was that like,
oh, absolutely,
he broke that Jay-Z, Puff Daddy. Like you say, people always talk about like the shiny suit era and how he completely like called them out on stop being greedy. He's just saying like stop being greedy, you know?
Yeah.
And I find like even though he was still on Mace albums, he was still doing Lock stuff, you know, and he was still doing that. So yeah, man, yeah. I was just going to ask you then, how do you feel his like legacy will be on? That it's hard to answer, I know, but what do you think? How do you think it's going to go in the next few years for someone like X?
Me personally, even before his passing, I considered him one of the GOATs and a legend and a pioneer, because he's just one of those rare cases that had it all. I keep coming back to versatility and just his overall ability with everything he did. He could make any type of song. He could be featured with anybody on any type of beat, and he always stole the show. And he always fit in. You know what I mean? Like he just was such an incredible artist. And that word gets tossed around lightly, artist. People call people artists, and they're not really doing anything that's too groundbreaking or different or whatever. But X was always pushing it forward and doing different things. So to me, he's one of the GOATs. I've always thought that he was. He's a legend. He's a pioneer. One of the most iconic rappers. Like I said, he was so damn influential, having us wearing the bandanas, wanting the double R chains, overalls. You know, he used to wear the overalls in some of those videos back in the day.
Yeah.
Man, and then I think too, just coming to another song I really love, man. How's It Going Down? Another great storytelling track. That beat is so smooth. The story is so bittersweet. I was watching a bunch of DMX videos the other day, you know, because he's messing with this girl, but she's got the baby father, and in the end, you know, they can't be together, but they're still gonna be friends. Like, ha, mad love, boo, to the end. Ha ha. Oh man.
Yeah.
He did it all. He could do thug love tracks, introspective tracks like Slippin', Let Me Fly. He was pouring himself out.
Yeah.
You know, In the Air Tonight, hopping on that Phil Collins shit. Like,
big. That was a
what couldn't he do?
That was a strong look.
I think his legacy, like, he was the biggest artist for those couple of years. He was one of them for sure. Like late 90s, early 2000s.
100%.
Like, those first 3 albums, man, are heavy. Those are dope albums. Like front to back, I can play that shit.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing. I hope that we heard about his new album and stuff like that. And I hope something comes out, because I remember that Locks track that came out recently. I was like, wow, that's good. That's not shit. DMX is fucking good on that. And I don't know, it just made me feel like, I don't know, his album could be good, man. And it's just a shame he's not here to see it. But like he says on the verse, not on the verse, well, we saw the verses, it was great. But like he said on the Drink Champs, he was
amazing.
Like, yeah, it was good, right? It was amazing. Just to see
I'm glad we got that.
100%.
I'm glad we got that.
But yeah, just seeing him say, you know, if I died today, then I'd be happy. And it was like, well, what can you say? What more can you say? You know, that's it. But Luke, man, thank you for bringing all that, because it's just nice to touch and connect that energy and just hearing where you're at. And,
absolutely, man.
You know, and
I might have been a little all over the place, but it just hits. You know, DMX gone, like. Man,
you see the video of the fans when his body's leaving the hospital,
going wild.
Mate,
he put Yonkers on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. R.I.P. DMX. Much love to all the fans, friends, family.
That's it.
You know, this one thing I love about hip hop, man. Everybody comes together. You got a couple of the shitheads I talked about earlier, but for the most part, like, everyone comes together and just embraces. And you know, what do you think about his legacy? Before we get out of here, like, what do you think Do you hold him as highly as I do?
I
do you think he's on that level? Or?
I always had a personal attachment, which I never like when you have your top 5 GOAT conversations or you're having a battle or whatever. I would never cite him as much because I always thought personally, he's not just the music for me. It's everything about X. It's been the stories and him just doing normal shit. Him just doing normal shit was huge to me. And it was like, Pac was so huge and we don't have that, but we do have X. And it's horrible to see him go through stuff, but it's also beautiful to see him go on a roller coaster with his daughter, you know? And these things was like, I felt that now he won't get clowned on. And I feel, well, hopefully not. And hopefully if things transpire the way they should, I feel like his family, all 15, 17 kids that he's got, like, I feel Def Jam and people like that should really step up at this point because he carried them on his shoulders, bro. Like,
you're right. And he crossed, I mean, you alluded to it earlier when you said hip hop wasn't that big, but everyone was listening to DMX. DMX was one of those artists that I remember back in the day.
Yeah.
When he came out, people that weren't into hip hop, they fucked with DMX because they're like, what is this?
Yes.
Because it was so different.
Yeah.
It was like DMX is almost his own brand of hip hop. Like he really is so unique that, you know, he crossed those barriers.
Yeah.
I knew people who were like heavy metal fans and they fucked with X because they got that grimy, the grittiness, the yelling, the screaming, the gothic, horrific sort of element to it.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that comes back to what I was saying about the amazing artists. They have that ability to just hit everybody in one way or another. And X definitely did that. And he will be missed for sure.
100%. And that legacy, bro, it's in the music. It's in the music. Listen to your artists now. You know, the Pop Smoke, people like that music has come from people like X, and I feel like that legacy will always be there, and I hope that he's not just a cult figure now. Like, it felt for a while he became a cult figure, even though he was so big. It was like everyone's talking about Jay-Z, everyone's talking about, you know, everyone else, and it's like, let's just remember Jay-Z needed X at that time, I feel, and I honestly feel like Jay-Z might have even changed his I'm not saying he did, like it was a conscious thing, but
it was some competition there. It definitely probably made him say, God damn, who is this?
It makes you better, right? It makes you better, and I feel like X definitely did that for Jay-Z, and now we have Jay-Z, who's amazing, you know? So yeah. But yeah, Luke, man, that's it's just been emotional. This whole week's been emotional, but but yeah, hopefully everyone check out Luke's YouTube channel and all your amazing reviews. Are you going to re-drop your DMX classic reviews? I remember you dropped a few of those in the day. I
did share one of my old ones for It's Dark and Hell is Hot. That was from like 5 or 6 years ago. You know what it's like when you watch your old stuff, you're like, I improved a little bit since then, but it was still pretty good. Man.
I enjoyed it.
It got some good little tidbits in there.
Yeah.
The reviews haven't been this heavy lately. Actually, kind of been a slow year for hip hop. It seems like there's been some stuff, but hasn't been as crazy as last year, in my opinion. So the reviews aren't popping as much. I'm hoping to get something in the works soon. Maybe some type of DMX video, though, for sure.
Wicked. Oh, wicked. I'm here for that. So yeah, people, go check that out. Go subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Luke, man, we're here. Hopefully next time we talk, it won't be about anything like this. It'll be about celebrating.
we keep saying that, man. You know, it's crazy, man. But thank you as always, man. I appreciate that you always reach out and keep me in the mix. So much love, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Much love to the fam as well. But yeah, I'm gonna bump some DMX now, man. So
hey, that's right.
Peace, bro.
Peace, man.